Let us pray. Almighty God, we have called us to govern this province. We ask your help to make decisions and laws that will be just and will promote the interests of the people. Almagtige God, ons bid dat U gedurende ons vergaderings ons die nodige wysheid sal gee en ons motiewe suiwer sal hou en dat U ons sal help om ons tekortkominge te oorkom en al ons besluite aan U op te dra. Sikelele lesbeletu nabantu bale, umusili ukulungu pipondo letu, kosi sikelele I Afrika, Ina Avantwana Bayo, Kokela Inkokeli Zayo, Inike Ikolo I Afrika. All this be back in your holy name. Amen. You may be seated. Before the Secretary reads the first order, may I just welcome all the guests on the gallery and just remind them that there are guests here, not to participate in the debate. Do not stand up and cheer and clap. That's not part of the proceedings on the ground. I will then see the Secretary to read the first order.
Debate on the Premier's State of the Province Address.
I see the first speaker, the Honourable Bagaka.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. As the curtain calls, bringing to the end the 10 years misrule of Premier Helen Zille, I can imagine that the National Party DA branch, somewhere in another place, she has received a standing ovation from the likes of Louis Botha, Jan Smuts, Herzog, Malan, and Verwoerd. She has done a tremendous job to continue their legacy in the Western Cape. Allow me to mention a few things I think Honorable Premier Zille excelled on in keeping the legacy of the founding fathers of the DA alive. I think we all know that the DA is a conglomeration of the old National Party, the Democratic Party. Firstly, she remained committed to the old apartheid of Botha, Smuts, Verwoerd were renowned for. Every time she shouted in this house that I am a communist, I could sense that she was exposing her anti-communist stance. Like a true arch conservative with her German background, you could see the hatred in her face for communists and black people in her eyes.
Order.
In the post-democratic dispensation.
Order. Just 1 second. Chief Whip.
Deputy Speaker, that last comment saying a hatred for black people is an overtly racist comment, accusing a member of being overtly racist. And surely that's not permissible in the House.
I don't want us to be racist in this House, but I will look at that specific comment, but you may proceed.
In the post-democratic dispensation, no one I know of hating black people like she did. This hatred cut across all facets of life, be it calling them refugees, or praising the legacy of colonialism, or through her attacks on undermining of the minstrels. The latest stupid rant of calling for tax revolt is another example. I do not take Honorable Zille's agitation for a tax revolt light. She knows very well that the repercussions can be significant. It is a calculated
Order.
It is a calculated move aimed at collapsing our democratic government. It is an aim at ensuring that government is unable to pay social grants to the poor, build houses, and pay for better education. Unfortunately, colored and African people will be most affected. She is an unstoppable tsunami who wreaks havoc everywhere she goes. For a period of 10 years, we were subjected to misinformation and repetition of empty promises that were never met. The people of the Western Cape grew tired of listening to this state of the province that only exists in Premier's figment of imagination. While we are all guaranteed the right to be equal citizens by our democratic constitution, the majority of citizens in the Western Cape lived within the hollows of servitude, reminiscent of dark days of apartheid, where their abilities in the job market are equated to their biological features instead of their talent. The reality in the Western Cape is that the majority of citizens, mostly citizens of color, wake up every morning to frustration compounded by the reality of their poverty and their inability to break the chains that bind them to this cycle of poverty. The sopa that was heard this past Friday was detached from reality. A capable government will not rely on the misrepresentation of facts and spreading of false data, which is also revealing of the DA's inability to administer adequately to all people of our province. Honorable Deputy Speaker, using the expanded definition of unemployment, the Premier indicated that the province was way below the national rate. Listening to this Premier boasting about these figures, a layman will believe the expanded unemployment decreased. In reality, let's face the reality, the rate increased from 23% in 2017 to 23.7% in the third quarter of 2018. Despite all this, does this unemployment rate she brags about speak to racial dynamics of this province and the real socio-economic changes that have been achieved? The answer is in the Bureau of 2017, where it is stated, I quote, relative to their shares of working age population in the province, Africans are underrepresented in employment and whites are overrepresented, close quote. Is this because of the resurgence and appointment of white males in senior positions in your administration? The answer is yes. How is it that one of the largest segments of the Western Cape province remains underrepresented or having access to decent jobs? The Bureau 2018 further states that those Africans, both male and female, who are employed, usually are in sections that are low-skilled, and those individuals are mostly without post-secondary education. Boasting about an unemployment rate should only occur when all people have decent jobs with decent pay, not when they are forced into servitude. The Premier's soap address ignores from the real issues and reality facing the people of the Western Cape. Rather, the province has become a homeland for the privileged few, mostly white, with access to tools, network, and relationships that allow them to advance their professional careers and likelihood to success rate. The paper video scandal is a case in point.
Order. Honourable Mogaka, just 1 second. Honourable Minister, Minister Schaefer.
Mr. Deputy Speaker, it's quite clear that, and we all know that the ANC wasn't here on Friday. Are they able to...
Order. Order. Order, Minister. Order. Order. Minister, you may rise on a point of order or a question. Do you ask one else?
Is it within the rules of Parliament for a party that didn't participate, wasn't here to hear the debate, to
Minister,
continue?
order. Order. That is neither a point of order nor a statement nor a question. Please continue.
Thank you, Speaker. No other young entrepreneur in the province has enjoyed such benefit besides your own son, Honourable Premier. The opposite is true for the rest of other young entrepreneurs, especially young black professionals who are demoralized and forced to leave province in multitudes such as Tinyi Kongwenye. Let me remind this House of Ms. Ngwenye, a qualified chartered accountant with 6 years of working experience who in May 2018 decided to move to Johannesburg. In her letter published in media outlets, she explains, I quote, "In the years that I live in Cape Town, no matter how hard I worked, I never really felt good enough. And that inferiority complex was as a result of being minority. Wherever I was the only African person. I was the only African person in my investment team. I was the only African in any given coffee shop, in any given wine farm. In Cape Town, I had no role models to look up to. There were no self-made black professionals who were doing so well in their field. Corporate in Cape Town always blamed the slow progress in transformation on black professionals leaving for Johannesburg and never stayed long enough to transform the organization. How do I expect black professionals to stay when you continue creating an environment that is not conducive to their success? Close quote. Speaker, this is a true reflection of Premier Helen Zille's legacy, deepening division and creation of an environment where people of color do not feel welcome or able to thrive. In a maiden soap, the Premier noted this division as Achilles' heels of the province. That now she leaves office years later with same division she inherited still lingering in our society is indicative of wasted 10 years. Wasted 10 years, we're stuck. When ANC stepped out of power, crime, unemployment were at lowest point ever. The province maintained top position in quality of matric pass. We prioritized free housing delivery for the poor. 10 years later, Premier Zille leave the Western Cape, a murder capital. Unemployment, especially youth, spiral out of control, and she abolished free housing policies. The poor people in informal settlement and backyarders should forget about free houses for as long as the DA is in this control. In her soapers since 2009, this is one fact she never hides, that free housing delivery is just not sustainable. That's DA's belief. The poor people in this soaper, she boasted about delivering of 212,967 housing opportunities since 2009. She must tell how many of these were free houses for the poor who perish in informal settlement fires every year. When the Premier said demand for housing is simply too high to sustain all models of free housing.
Remember, just 1 second. Before you speak.
I think we've been very tolerant with Honourable Fritz, but I would like you to address him. He's shouting unbehaviour,
yes,
and he's creating a climate that not.
You were saying I wasn't aware that Mr. Fritz was the talker. I saw the members behind him, but I want to appeal to that side of the House. Please allow the member the time to speak. Honourable Gaka, you may continue.
She's not shouting, he's threatening me. He is even threatening me. You know, the Speaker, when the Premier said demand for housing is simply too high to sustain all models of free housing, I knew she was telling the people that in the promised 5,000 housing opportunities by 2022, none will be free housing. Speaker, the caring ANC government remains dedicated towards the provision of free housing for the poor, and we did it in the past in this province. The DA-run Western Cape has annually returned the unspent housing budget back to the national treasury. Speaker, our people in formal settlement live under inhuman conditions without water nor toilets. Whenever they took to the street to demand better services, Premier Zille, in her attempt to silence the people who will cry deliberate sabotage to make the province ungovernable. Opportunities for the development of housing and habitat of working people in the city have also been turned down by the DA, usually in favor of the wealth, mainly white property developers. Brett Heron told the public that his plan to build affordable housing in Salt River to facilitate community integration and to alleviate eviction and homelessness in the inner city were tweeted by the DA. More worrying is the rate at which pockets of land suitable for affordable housing have disposed by the DA, e.g. Tafelberg school site and Somerset hospital land. The DA has been deliberately increasing rates and taxes in its attempt to push out the historical communities such as your Bokap, Worcester, Salt River and Observatory. Moreover, the people have been promised affordable housing through Conrad Better Living. Since 2015, when she started making this empty promise, she leaves office having done absolutely nothing in this thing. Speaker, she also failed to deliver on her broadbanding rollout promise. When it was launched in 2014, she promised to connect 2,000 government sites. She said by 2016, all sites will be connected with minimum speed. And by August 2018, 90% of sites would enjoy 100 Mbps speed and 10% enjoying 1 Gbps. She said there will be 384 Wi-Fi hotspots covering almost every ward in the province. With Nutel, they committed to spending approximately 25% of the value of their contract with local companies. In 2019, none of the above happened. She brags about reaching 1,875 such. This is 125 such less than the planned target. She omits to tell that her department was fingered by the AG for a negligible underspending due to the reduction of the target for the broadbanding connection, of which underspending is their life actual. Speaker, the socio-economic hardships in the province have resulted in the communities being held hostage to gang violence and its association consequences. If the economy of the Western Cape is prospering so abundantly, then why in the Cape Flats engulfed in gang-related crime since the entirety of the DA-led administration? Let me answer for you. Because the increase in economic activity the Premier speaks about have only flowed into hands of a few entitled, predominantly white sectors of our communities. Violent and gang activity follow because people are frustrated and nevertheless forces are able to take hold. When ANC governed, we pushed implementation of Section 206 to its limit, okay? Under Premier Zille, the role of government was reduced to mere oversight, using police, watching briefs, walking buses, funding youth safety religious partnership. For full 10 years, there was no meaningful contribution to combat gangs and crime in society. The situation got worse when the anti-gang unit was deployed by national government, following few other successful operations like Operation Thunder. Speaker, the DA role in the fight against crime has been to politicize the matter. The call for deployment of army and use of incorrect police to population ratio are but few examples. The ratio of 1 officer to 509 residents of Western Cape is incorrect. According to official police information, the Western Cape police ratios is better than the national average of 1 to 375 in terms of the provincial capacity and national capacity, which is 1 to 324. The ANC, Honorable Madikizela, because you are damaged when intellectual, you cannot understand that. The ANC in the province will continue to engage the president to deliver on these promises for the re-establishment of the Bambananis.
Honorable Magaka, order. Just 1 second. Honorable Wenger.
Thank you, Mr. Deputy Speaker. Would the honourable member take a question?
Honorable Magaka, are you prepared to take a question?
She's bored. I won't take that question. I have to finish this first and then she comes.
Fine, thank you. Not now. You may continue.
Yeah. The ANC in the province will continue to engage the president to deliver on his promise for the re-establishment of Bambananis against crime program so that we can involve our community in fighting crime. Like in the days when the ANC governed this province, we will have safely volunteers in every school and every street corner in this province. Before I leave this point, I want to warn MEC Windy to desist from playing palace politics on this issue. His 5 million commitment towards police reverse is just not thought through, or is exposed his cluelessness when it comes to the subject matter. My humble appeal to the DA is to stop misleading the people of Western Cape and fanning the flames to create a state of panic and racial disharmony. By the way, we are still await full implementation of the recommendation of what we call Zille Commission in Khayelitsha. Houses in Khayelitsha still without street lights. Houses in Khayelitsha still no roads. And the recommendations are there. And you are leaving tomorrow with empty promises. Our schools are affected by the issue of gangs and crime. On Friday, learners got drunk and started attacking each other with knives and pangas. And remember, you delivered a lot of alcohol in those schools through the bill you passed here. I could not help but to ask, what was the after-school game changer assisted with this reality? The Premier boosted about increasing the number of participants in this game changer from 14,900 when it started to 18,000 this year. Speaker, the target 81,000. Speaker, the target was over 112 learners by 2019, not 81,000. Again, she failed. It pains me to read in the newspaper that over 6,000 children have not been placed in school in the province. By the way, I didn't only read, I witnessed that. It's more than that, including my own nephew is among those people who are not at school. The learners have missed out on a full term. Matriculants in the province still wonder what happened to the youth gap year volunteer program promised to them by the Premier, where top matric and university graduates taking part in gap year will tutor children in the OMT centers. Your record, Premier, has read it with half-truth and empty promises. Now, not only in the quality of NSC results dropping in the province, but also the quality of the systemic test result. In terms of the language, grade 6, the province decreased from 40.1 in 2016 to 38.7 in 2017. In maths, the province decreased from 40.1 in 2016 to 38.6 in 2017. We observe the same trend in grade 9 with pass rate for language decreasing from 55 to 1 in 2016 to 53 in 2017. The math decreased from 23.6 in 2016 to 22% in 2017. What are you claiming to have achieved? Since 2015, the people in Manenberg have been promised a youth lifestyle campus, a network of education and after-school facilities linked to by safe promenade and upgrade lighting and infrastructure. As she leaves office, none of the above have realized. Instead, she tells us about scenarios for how best to deliver for upgrading primary school and brand new school of skills, as well as 590-bed regional hospital in that community. The challenge of the public health care in the province worsened after Premier Zil and her cabinet closed down JF Josta Hospital. Kennedy Street Hospital and the Mitchell Spain have since been turned into places where people go to die. The blame rests solely on the Premier's hand. She is responsible for the state of health in this province that continue to deteriorate. The ANC, as an institution, is aware of this mishap that has occurred. You claim, make a lot of noise, but appreciate one thing about the ANC. When the state president of the ANC was addressing this country, he has acknowledged and accepted and took responsibility of the problems that the country is confronting. And he didn't only put them on the table. He didn't only put them on the table, but he made a challenge. He made a serious challenge to all of us, including you as an opposition, that these are the problems that we need to collectively deal with as a nation, not racializing these issues. You know, that's pathetic. But let me tell you, Honorable Premier Zil have not accepted any of the problems that confronted the province. Instead, she hid all those problems. She never mentioned even that there are 6,000 students that are at school, that are not at school. She hid that reality. Instead of putting that reality on the table so that the society can assist her resolving that particular problem. What kind of a premier that is so ignorant, that's so fragile, to raise the issues that are affecting the society?
Order.
You know, Ramaphosa taking over our province and the country is an indicative of changes coming with our organization. The ANC organization accepted that we have a lot of problems, including this corruption you are shouting about. We never said as an ANC there is no corruption. There is a corruption. There is even corruption among our own ranks. We don't hide that. We are in the process of dealing with those problems. That's why as an ANC, any person who is affected in the commissions, any person who has been pointed a finger by the hawks, that particular individuals must face the law. That is what the ANC is saying. But we are expecting the same from the DA. You must say, you must not defend your son and how you give the tender. You must not do that. You must also take responsibility for Honorable Matigizela using companies that benefited the Department of Human Settlement, organizing a lavish party at one and only. Take responsibility of that, Madam.
Order. Your time is almost expired.
Thank you. Thank you. Let me just finish this sentence. The time bomb that the socio-economic challenges bring to the people of the West End cannot go ignored any longer. The only true change to the unbearable hardship faced the majority of our people is the strength of well-developed policies, bad practices of tried and tested implementation of mechanism and ability to self-reflect, admitted with dignity mistakes, and aim to bring to life the goals of the Freedom Charter as embodied in the ANC. I thank you.
Thank you. Order, members. The time has expired. Honourable Mackenzie.
Speaker, can I just address you, please? During that, I deliberately left it after the member completing his speech. But I just want you to be aware of it. During the member's speech, you called people ignorant, intellectually useless. I just want you to be aware that when our members do the same, you must ignore us as well.
Order. 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 Order, Honourable Mackenzie. You've addressed me. Order. Order. Honourable Davids, I will have a look at Hansard, and if necessary, I will come back to the House. May I just appeal to the House in general? We're reaching the end of our term, and it's becoming a volatile, political volatile area that we're operating in. This House has always been a very vibrant House, and we want to keep it that way. But I want to be able to hear the Speaker and his bench speak as well. And sometimes the conversations and the dialogue between members and shouting across the floor is simply too loud. And I want to appeal generally to members to tone their voices and allow members to speak. They have a right to make a speech in this House. I'll see the next speaker, Honourable Windy, Minister of Community Safety.
Thank you very much, Speaker.
Order. Minister, before you start, Honourable Jayanti, allow your member.
Honourable Deputy Speaker, can you just remind the people in the gallery they're not allowed to participate before something else happened again?
Yes, I will. I didn't spot it, but order. As I appealed when we started, order. The gallery does not form part of the floor of the House, and please do not clap or stand up and cheer, anything like that. You are not part of the proceedings of the House. And I appeal to you, please do abide by that. I then see Minister Windy to start his speech.
Thank you very much, Deputy Speaker. Deputy Speaker, on Friday we heard a speech from a Premier who made maximum use of an opportunity. Our policy of an open opportunity society showed you that when you put a government together with those kind of policies, you can, at the end of your tenure and 10 years, actually make a speech like she made. I want to thank the Premier for the opportunity that she gave me within her government over this last 10 years. I really am glad to see so many young people in the audience, in the auditorium, or in the gallery today. They will know that whenever I've spoken to any of them, I've said exactly the same thing. When you get an opportunity, use that opportunity to make your life better. And the sober speech of the Premier showed what this government has done with the opportunity that the voters gave us in this province 10 years ago and again 5 years ago. That opportunity showed itself not in what the Honourable Leader of the Opposition was talking about a figment of imagination. He was actually talking about numbers and stats that were coming out of his government, a national government entity, whether it be the presidency or Stats SA. These statistics are showing what this government did with those opportunities. 24.8% jobs growth in the term of this Premier. The highest in South Africa, by far. 80% of schools with internet connectivity under this Premier, using that opportunity to make a difference in people's lives, the best in South Africa. Whether it be homes delivered, 212,967 homes, or the hundreds of thousands of title deeds that get handed over, this was a real track record. A real track record that showed how differences were made. And again, Premier, I want to thank you for the opportunities that you gave me within this cabinet. Premier, your unwavering commitment to ensure that the lives of all residents of this Western Cape were improved. Your resoluteness in turning this province into a shining light for both the local, national and international communities. Turning the Western Cape into a fortress that is economically sound, fertile and receptive to investments. Premier, you gave me a number of opportunities and I really worked at each of those. I started off as the Minister of Finance in your government. I held office for economic development and tourism. You then gave me the agricultural opportunity, and right now I have the community safety opportunity. You've given me a number, and I will talk about those opportunities in a short while. But, Premier, before I get to talking about those opportunities, I would like to talk about the ANC. I'm not going to talk about the ANC, how they've misused the last 10 years worth of opportunity where they've been in government in South Africa, about Eskom, SAA, state capture, Bosasa, junk status, the actual horrible state that they have left this country in. I'm going to talk about the ANC here in this parliament, this opposition, who actually, if you just listen to that speech that's just been made, did not use the opportunity of opposition.
Order. Order.
They did not use the opportunity of opposition. Now let's talk about last Friday, Mr. Speaker. Last Friday, the ANC put out a whole lot of little banners on social media. They spoke about 28,000 people who were murdered in the Western Cape. Interesting that crime is the responsibility of the national government, so the ANC failed in that state. They spoke about 6,000 young people coming here to look for education opportunities, which we give year after year after year. But what they forgot to say is those 6,000 young people coming to look for opportunities came from a failed ANC province, failed ANC provinces. They spoke about how the housing list has grown beyond all proportion. It's because people come here for the opportunities. They come here for the housing opportunities, they come here for the job opportunities, they come here for the health opportunities, and they come here for the education opportunities.
Order, Minister. Order. Order. Honourable Janchi.
I just want, if you allow me, Deputy Speaker, to ask.
Do you want to ask him a question?
Ask the MEC if he agrees,
Minister, order,
if he agrees with Dan Plato, the
Minister,
mayor, when he says they don't think for themselves.
Honourable Janchi. Order. Don't abuse the opportunity when you rise on a point of order or a question. You ask the chair to ask the minister. Minister, are you prepared to take a question?
No.
No. You may continue. Order. You may continue, Minister, when they stop interjecting. Order. Honourable Fritz, Honourable Janki, allow the Minister to continue. Minister, you may continue.
So, Mr. Speaker, let's talk about last Friday. Last Friday, the ANC had a plan. They decided that they were going to get themselves 3,000 people outside this legislature, and what they were going to do is they were going to stand up as the Premier started to make her State of the Province address. They were going to stand up and leave to go and talk to the people outside. That again was a failure, Mr.
Order.
Speaker. Because...
Order. I'm not going to appeal again. Please allow... Order. The Minister has a right to speak in the House, and there's too much conversation going on and shouting at the moment. Make an interjection, but don't give a running commentary. Minister Windy, you may continue.
Speaker, that again was a failure because their timing was totally out. They didn't have 3,000 people outside this legislature at 9:30 as was requested as part of their application. They had 19. So they had to sit here and listen to half of the SOPA address. And of course, they were getting constant messages. Don't come yet. Hang on a second. We don't have any more people. We've now got 25. Now we've got 40. Now we've got 50. And eventually they had to make a call when they had 300 people outside. There were just about more police officers and more people just coming to see what was going on than they managed to muster outside. And of course, Mr. Speaker, they then had to make their decision. I'm not going to talk about the disgusting behavior that they actually exercised on Friday last week. I'm sure some of my colleagues will actually use that. But you know, it was interesting because they actually had to move out to go to another failure.
Order. Honourable Davids. Weren't you? It looked like... Okay, so my apologies. Somebody there's giving a running commentary, and that must now stop, please. Whoever it was, stop the running commentary. Minister, you may continue.
They had to go outside to a truckload of failures. They had brown envelope Rasool on this truck. They had rehashed Beineveld on this truck. They had retired Ehrenreich on this truck. Another truckload of failures, talking to 300 people. They even had to bus people in from George to get to 300. A total failure, Mr. Speaker. A total failure. But, Speaker, let's perhaps get on to some more serious issues in this province.
Order.
First of all, I noted the Honourable Magaka, the leader of the opposition in this province, started off his speech speaking about his own people in his own party, the National Party people who sit right behind him. You know what I thought when he was making his speech? I thought of Ibrahim Rasool and Martinus van Schalkwyk standing in this parliament with glasses of champagne. He needs to get his facts right. He has failed there again. But, Mr. Speaker, let's talk about the ANC. And I want to talk about ethics within the ANC. I want to talk about the behavior of the ANC as we lead up to this campaign. So let's talk about an issue that I raised in this House last time I had the opportunity to speak, and I raised the issue about the ANC, Ibrahim Rasool and Faiz Jacobs, saying that the DA was colluding with SAPU in the anti-gang unit. I actually put the challenge to say, come and prove it. We have not heard anything. I've just heard now that's true again. I challenge you, Mr. Dugmore, bring the truth to this House. Bring the truth, because I am telling you right now that Rasool and Faiz Jacobs are lying. The second thing, Mr. Speaker, another lie, Mr. Speaker. This was the one when Minister Bheki Cele came to the province, and I've told you this in the House before. I challenged him to come back and show me otherwise. He was asked by a journalist while he was here giving a report back on the anti-gang unit. And in that report back, a journalist asked him, why did you not ask the MEC in this province? And he said, I definitely asked the MEC in this province. And half an hour later, his office faxed through an invite, but they got the wrong address because they sent the invite from the MEC in the Eastern Cape. They still have not sent my invite. So again, on a public platform, this minister lies. But let's get to the ultimate lie, Mr. Speaker. Let's get to the ultimate lie, Mr. Speaker. You've heard a couple of times, whether it's outside in the campaign from Brown Envelope Rasool, you heard it again from the Honourable Leader of the Opposition, bring back Bambanani. Guess who closed down Bambanani, Mr. Speaker? Guess who closed down Bambanani? It was the ANC that closed down Bambanani, Mr. Speaker. So again, Rasool is telling lies when he stands on a truck with the rest of his retired friends. He tells lies when he says the DA closed Bambanani. It was the ANC. The ANC closed Bambanani actually within a month of them, the ANC firing Ibrahim Rasool as the Premier. And it's interesting because if you go to have a look at, and the best way is to go and have a look at this government's very own documents. Go and look at this government's very own documents.
Order.
It is common knowledge that the Bambanani Unite Against Crime, initiated by Leonard Ramatlakane as Minister of Community Safety, was launched in February 2003. But directly after Ibrahim Rasool was removed as Premier in this province, Bambanani ceased to exist. It was closed down by the ANC. Bambanani, if you go and have a look at the annual performance plan of this government in the ANC's time, in other words, the annual performance plan that we inherited after the election, you will find Bambanani only mentioned once in the whole of the annual performance plan. Once. And it was mentioned once because it was mentioned by mistake, because it was in the document right up front talking about the terms of reference. There was not one other iota of budget for it. There was no mention of it. It was discontinued by this government. But also, if you go back and have a look at the numbers, Mr. Speaker, at that stage there were 8,000 people being paid via Bambanani. The recruitment process was not through the department. The recruitment process was through political means. Political means. This was a political army. This was a political expenditure of state resources on ANC support. And that's why it was a good thing that the ANC canned Bambanani. But today, as we stand here, the piece of legislation that this province has put in place, the only province in South Africa with legislation like this, the only province, it actually talks about neighborhood watches, enabling neighborhood watches. We are way beyond the 8,000 cadres that the ANC had in Bambanani. We are sitting at 17,000 registered neighborhood watchers in this province that walk the streets to keep our community safe. These are the real heroes in fighting crime, while the ANC messes around at the top, when they mess around in Pretoria, where they're supposed to be managing SAPs, and of course that bleeds down to management right here in this province. And that is also very, very disturbing, Mr. Speaker. And that's why when I got the opportunity to speak in the National Assembly at the end or post the President's SONA address, I spoke about how many letters, and I showed each one of them, that this Cabinet or I have written to the Minister about policing, about resources, about our offering to help with bringing down crime in this province. And guess what? Not one of them get answered. Not one. I then personally put each of these into a brown envelope, not with cash like Rasool, but with documents, and I sent them to the President. And the President is busy working on them as we speak. Mr. Speaker, if we're talking about this legislation and this political interference, not only in Bambanani and their cadre deployment, what really worries me is how our senior police officials are busy laying charges against each other. When a fish rots, it rots from the head. There is no senior leadership.
Order.
There is no senior leadership from the Minister or nationally in SAPS, and it's affecting us in the province. These members of the opposition keep on talking about crime. Crime and policing is a national competency. Every time I say, give it to me, the Minister says no. But quite frankly, in this province, the management in this province is an absolute disaster.
Order, Minister, just 1 second. Honourable Janji, I've given you a warning and I'm looking at you again. If you want to see the end of this debate, you must please contain yourself now. Minister, you may continue. No, you can't address me on that. Minister, no. The answer is no. Minister, you may continue. You're almost done. On what? On what topic? No. No. Please take your seat. Minister, please proceed and finish off. You've got 1 minute left.
Thank you very much, Speaker. So as I say, it is really deeply concerning to me I've sent the details to IPID, and I'm not taking sides. I've got cases from both sides in the police here. I've got cases from both sides. Documents get stuck under my door. I get all sorts of stuff sent to me all the time. I send it through to IPID, and we are calling for investigations. But quite frankly, I think we need to go beyond that. I think we need to intervene with the president to say we need outside, independent investigation into what's going on in our police management, because there's too much political interference. And this is where I need to use this space to talk to the Honourable Dugmore, because the Honourable Dugmore is copied in correspondence, where 5 of our senior police officers are also connected into that political correspondence, along with Leonard Max, Faiz Jacobs, and a number of other ANC members in this province. This is really deeply concerning. It is deeply concerning. And we need to make sure that policing is dealt with properly. There is a separation between party and state. And in this province, Mr. Speaker, it is a very serious issue. We cannot come and make real statements like we do about crime when this kind of stuff is going on behind the scenes.
Thank you, Minister. Your time has expired. The Honourable Minister Beverly Schaefer.
Thank you, Speaker. Honourable Speaker, Honourable Premier, while listening to the Premier's State of the Province address last Friday on the administrative governance over the past 10 years, I could only sit and marvel. Well done to this government, exactly as Minister Wendy has said, for making the Western Cape truly a great province to live in, no matter what. Speaker, I've come to the realisation that the ANC-led national government urgently needs our intervention for South Africa to move forward. The success of this government is in stark contrast to the failures of our national government. This poor President Ramaphosa is scrambling to fix our broken country under the leadership of the ANC. Instinctively, I actually do feel sorry for him. I mean, how can one man try to fix a broken system when it takes an entire team? So in the same spirit of Tumamina, I want to say we can help. This is our blueprint for success. We focused on a handful of major things. We had a sector-focused strategy in Project Kolisa that set targets and held everyone accountable. We focused on reducing red tape. We focused on infrastructure-led growth in projects like the Saldana IDZ and the Atlantis SEZ. And we are business-friendly, which means that we attract investors and we are able to build partnerships with the private sector. Speaker, we didn't have major budgets. There was no stimulus packages. We don't have the national mandate on economic policy. We don't have failing COSATU-driven, communist-driven, national democratic policies that continue to fail to grow our economy. It has been reported that projections in the recent medium-term budget policy statement on the ratio of South African government debt to GDP will rise from 55.8% in March this year and peak at 59.6% in March of 2024. Adding to that debt of state-owned enterprises like Eskom, SAA and the SABC, we are looking at a debt projection of 70% of our total GDP in 2024. That is astounding. How can we economically survive this fiscal cliff that the ANC government has placed us in? No accountability, no ethics, no governance. But there is light, Speaker, at the end of this dark tunnel. Unless, of course, if Eskom fails to keep the lights on, for that we shall definitely pray. But in this instance, there is some small light. The Western Cape has developed this blueprint, which has contributed to economic development and job creation, and is proof of it. According to Stats SA, Speaker, 39% of unemployed South Africans have never, ever worked in their lives before. And among the youth, the figure is a staggering 60.3%. I mean, how is this possible? But in the Western Cape, we now have 500,000 more people with jobs than there ever were in 2009. The rate of our growth in jobs numbers between 2009 and 2018, Speaker, remains the highest in the country, and it's not by accident. This province set economic growth and job creation as its #1 strategic goal, and it has worked. Speaker, President Ramaphosa and the ANC needn't waste any more of taxpayers' money by setting up a team to improve ease of doing business and to cut red tape. We already have a blueprint in place that we're happy to share with him. If the plan is to move up at least 32 places in the World Bank ease of doing business rankings, you are going to need our help. Our red tape reduction unit has already registered the 1 billion in economic savings. This weekend, Speaker, I met the Nigerian model Jemima, who's a star in a well-known soap brand commercial. The 2 million rand commercial and 75 jobs were on a fine line when she couldn't get a visa for 3 weeks because the South African mission in Nigeria's printers weren't working. Without a visa, it looked as if the entire project would have been shot in India. Through the interventions by Reuben Windvogel and his team, and with the support of DDAT, we were able to rescue the shoot and the 75 people who were working on it. Speaker, the President's announcement of his economic stimulus package and his goal to reform policy to enhance economic growth sounded great at first. We all know how much policy uncertainty has affected South Africa's ability to grow this economy. And the first thing he mentioned was a change to the onerous visa regulations that hampered tourism and saw a decline in tourist numbers for the first time in South Africa's history in 2015. That was good news, right? But carrying the wording was really the key issue. It talks about, in fact, the changes were very slight. They moved from must to may. They talked about additional documentation for foreign minders no longer need to be required, that they used to have to be required. And guess what? The uncertainty of the word must or may, can you imagine, creates complete chaos at the airports, and the onus regulations remain in place. They remain a barrier to the ease of travelling, and they remain hampering South Africa as a family-friendly destination. Speaker, the Sona speech, again, was one of the most tech-focused we've heard from a president in South Africa, and we applaud this. However, in the Western Cape, we've been driving a focus on the development of tech skills and the uptake of young people in the sector for a number of years now. The Greater Cape Town area was named as the most productive tech sector in Africa last year by Endeavour Insights. We've also heard just today that Cape Town is ranked at number 30 on global property firm Savills' Tech Cities in Motion report. While we welcome his focus on 4IR, this is not just something that the President can jump into when he doesn't even have the basics right. The fact that it took a year between the first announcing a 4IR panel and actually appointing them is not ideal. This isn't a steam train that will wait at the station while we run to catch up. It's a digital highway with no speed limits. Speaker, at the weekend, Public Enterprises Minister Pravin Gordhan stated that national government owed South Africans an explanation on how multi-billion projects such as Medupi and Kusile coal plants failed. Analyst Peter Montalto estimated that South Africa's GDP has almost likely lost around 1 billion rand per load shedding stage per day since Sunday. Economist Mike Schuessler recently told Fin24 that he estimated that Eskom earned about 4 billion rand a week in revenue. With at least 10% and at one stage 15% gone for much of the time during load shedding, the loss to the Eskom to now is probably around 300 to 400 million rand. That is more than the turnover of 95% of South Africa's companies in a year, and probably as much as 30% of the JSE-listed companies, he said. And he continued saying that with Eskom having no policy white paper laying out the details of a turnaround strategy, this very fact creates a huge credibility problem for National Treasury to deal. Let's see how the Minister of Finance is going to explain this one tomorrow. And in the oil, gas and ship repair sectors, our focus has been on the development of the Saldanha Bay IDZ, which has that ability to unlock new job opportunities and investment. Already working with the DTI, That investment of 3 billion rand has been secured with new investment in the pipeline. We've also been working towards the readiness for the importation of LNG gas. While it's still a way off, as has been said before, we are ready. Gas will reduce our reliance on Eskom, and we don't want to wait longer than we need to for that. Speaker, in the Western Cape, a recent independent study, which I have here, has just been released, found that 72% of land reform projects we support are successful. This is an external study. We don't know the rate of success in the rest of the country because there has been no studies elsewhere. But Matthew Sposa, a senior member of the ANC, once said that 9 out of 10 projects in South Africa fail. Many farmers have been farming for decades without leases. Here they are, from the National Department of Rural Development and Land Reform, which makes it almost impossible to secure any kind of financial backing. My predecessor, Minister Alan Winde, has written to former Minister Nkwinti. He writes a lot, I must say, to the Department Deputy Minister Squatcher countless times, only to be met with stony silence. It seems to be a trend. This is not support, Speaker. This is a neglect in the extreme. The ANC neglects the vulnerable people in our rural communities. Speaker, the Western Cape has progressed despite the failings of ANC national government in the economy. But when their dysfunctionality impacts sectors of the economy, the way that the Department of Agriculture, Forestry and Fishery has affected our ocean's economy, we cannot ignore it. Abalone poaching continues unabated. The department is rife with allegations, and communities are at the mercy of criminal elements. The fishing rights allocation process of 2020 is on its way, while the 2015 application was fraught with corruption. The total allowable catch allocations must balance environmental sustainability with people's rights to participate meaningfully in our economy. DAF's track record thus far has shown that they are hopefully inept at providing this balance. The Western Cape has proven time and time again, Speaker, that it can succeed where national has failed to do so. It is time that small-scale fishing is decentralized to the provinces in order to benefit local communities and regional economies. Finally, to the ANC and to the President, if you're looking for ways to solve your problems, I suggest you start by reading Premier Zilla's SOPA debate. For a decade, the Western Cape has combined its targeted economic approaches with good governance and accountability to create our recipe for success. And the proof is in the pudding, but there is only so much that we can do without the help of national government.
Order.
Speaker, you don't get results like ours, and you certainly don't get them by throwing money at the problems. Because if the Zondo Commission has to show us anything, it's that our money is not safe in the hands of the people we're throwing it at.
Thank you, Minister.
Thank you.
Your time has expired. Order. The Honourable Christians.
Mr. Deputy Speaker, let me first take this opportunity to welcome my guests in the gallery, Pastor Wayne Thomas and Dr. Bishop Douglas Bell. Dr. Bell, influential bishop, has now thrown his weight behind the ACDP, and I want to welcome Pastor Thomas and Bishop Bell. Mr. Deputy Speaker, today, the 19th of February 2019, the ACDP want to serve notice on the DA and the ANC to say your time has expired. Your due date is the 8th of May 2019. The people of the Western Cape will vote you out. The ACDP will usher in godly governance. The voters will choose again, as the Premier said, a road less traveled, and that is the ACDP, to come into power, Western Cape 2019. Just remember, and they all know the story of David and Goliath. They all know about the story of David and Goliath. But let me teach him something further. The Bible says in Samuel, David says to the Philistines, you come against me with a sword, spear, and javelin, but I will come against you in the name of the Lord Almighty, the God of the armies of Israel, who you have defied. Who you have defied.
Order. Order.
The Premier highlighted in...
Order. Just 1 second, Minister, member. Order. The member is entitled to be heard. Please quiet down.
The Premier highlighted in a speech everything about the alcohol harms game changer, focusing on recreational alternatives. But she forget to mention, of course, the selling of alcohol and consuming of alcohol for fundraising at our schools. And that was done under the DA government, under the Helen Zille. In fact, Deputy Speaker, the provincial alcohol-related harms reduction policy in Green Paper, led and championed by Premier Zille, highlights the danger of alcohol for children and adults. That is in the Green Paper. And yet they passed that law. Everyone where we went was against that alcohol selling at school for fundraising. But the DA, with their numbers, pushed it through. And the voter will show their numbers on election day, 8 May. Further reports indicated that 35, do you want a voucher? I'll give you one because you're unemployed after the 8th of May 2019. You'll be unemployed. You'll be unemployed. Further reports indicated that 35.2 of the Western Cape...
Christian, just 1 second.
Is the member willing to take a question?
No, he's not.
He's a backbencher.
You may proceed.
Further reports indicated that 35.2 of the West Cape pupils in Standard 6, I want to make it Standard 6 because people understand Standard 6 and Standard 9, admitted to be binge drinkers more than any other province. Binge drinkers at that age. Your time has expired. Your due date is the 8th of May 2019. The Premier in a speech spoke about 14,000 neighborhood watchers vetted. The Minister now said 17,000. So what? Our communities are still not safer. Our communities are still in a mess. And like you usually do, you blame the national government. You'll blame. So when you blame, and the DA is definitely incapable to govern, now remove yourself or excuse yourselves. The Premier has a way, and I see the DA as well, has a way how to manipulate statistics. They mention the one and leave the other one on. Let me just give you an example.
Order.
The matric pass rate increased from 75.7 to 81% 2018, but the Premier refused to mention that they slipped from 1 to 3rd. And that is what she refused to, she did not mention that. She also mentions, the Premier mentions 109 school resource officers were placed at 53 schools. But our children are still not safe. There was a survey done, and our people, 1 out of 6 learners are not safe at our schools. So I don't know why the Premier gives us certain statistics and the others she holds for herself. The DA has failed the people of the Western Cape, and the 8th of May 2019, the voters will remove you. Premier, how can you compare, let me tell you, how can you compare yourself to the ANC of clean audits, the Western Cape 83 and Gauteng 52? The people in the Western Cape has already rejected the ANC, and the people of the Western Cape has already rejected the ANC, and the EFF will stay a 2% party or will they vanish after the 29 election. So you cannot compare against the ANC or the EFF. You can't compare them against them. The DA does not have a political will to address crime, social issues, or the problems at our schools. Your expiry date is the 8th of May 2019. For too long, the DA has instilled fear and has misled the people of the Western Cape, and they will be caught out this time around. The DA under watch of Premier Helen Zille, and Premier Helen Zille must answer this. So you must answer us, why do you discriminate against Christian businesses? Why do you discriminate against Christian businesses? Why should a Christian business doing business with the government or any municipality run by the DA in this Western Cape have a halal certificate, or the imam must come to bless the business?
Member,
why are you discriminating
Your time has expired. You can finish off with the last sentence.
We believe that civil government must be under authority of God, and this is how we're going to get the Western Cape and South Africa on the right track.
Thank you, member. Your time has expired. Order. Die achtbare Simmers.
Kijk, ik is een beetje nog geskok.
Order. Achtbare Simmers, je kan beginnen.
Baie dankie. Ek het 'n bietjie geskok deur die godsman se woorde, maar nou ja, okay. Honorable Deputy Speaker, the true test of a premier's performance in any given province is determined not only by accomplishments in government, but by the governing party's performance during that premier's term. With this in mind, it is not only sufficient to judge Premier Helen Zille's performance based on a government, but based on the growth and popularity of a party in the province which she serves proudly. Of the ANC's many misinformed claims made last week, one was that the people of the Western Cape have become tired of Premier Zille signaling a political shift from the DA in the province. Vader weet waartoe. Honorable Speaker, I have some questions to pose to the ANC today. Let me een beetje luisteren nou, hoor. If Premier Helen Zille and the DA's days are indeed numbered, why has the DA support increased by almost 10% in the Western Cape between 2009 and the 2014 general elections?
Order.
Similarly, if the DA is in decline, as the ANC alleges, en hier as net wil luister naar die feite, man.
Order, Agbara Davids. Order, Agbara Davids and the other leader, please give him a chance to speak.
Why has our support increased in the east region of the Western Cape from governing 3 municipalities and 1 in coalition in 2006 to governing outright majority in 9 municipalities out of 14 and 2 in coalition, growing our DA support across the east region up from 51% to nearly 60% in 2016. That is the feite. But may I remind the ANC that between 2011 and 2016...
Order. Honourable Simmers, just 1 second. Honourable Davids, I'm not going to speak to you again. You're giving a running commentary now. It's not allowed. Member Simmers, please continue.
Deputy Speaker, die waarheid maak seer. Okay. May I remind the ANC that between 2011 and 2016, their support in the east region of the Western Cape dropped by almost 21%. So, I fail to see how Premier Zille's days are numbered when the DA has continued to grow in this province under her leadership. Maar, achtbare ondervoorzitter, kom ons gee nou meer oorweging aan die landelike kiesers. Want die ANC beweer dat hulle alleen reg en voorskap het oor ons landelike stem in Suid-Afrika, terwyl hulle eintlik teer op hierdie landelike munisipaliteite om hulle net tot 'n regering te verkies. Dan steel hulle die einste areas rot en kaal. Hoe kan die mense daarmee saamleef?
Order.
Verskeie munisipale en tussenverkiesings in ons provinsie toon dat die ANC nie meer die alleenreg...
Just 1 second. The noise level is too high in this house at the moment. I can't hear the member speaking. And you must shout, and it's not necessary to shout. Please continue.
Verskeie munisipale en tussenverkiesings in ons provinsie toon dat die ANC, ek moet sê ANC's, nie meer die alleenreg en voorskap oor ons landelike kiesers het nie. Dis feit. In Januarie het die DA wijk te Bergrivier die ANC wijk afgerokkel met 'n oorweldigende meerderheid, terwyl ons ook die afgelope Nuisna wijk 4 tussenverkiesing met 'n eislike 400% in ondersteuning van 6,42% tot 26,97% gegroei het. Ek moet dus weer eens vir die ANC die volgende vraag vra. As premier Jalen Zille in die DA se dae getel is, waarom dan hierdie volgehoue groei onder die regering wat sy trots lei? Honorable Speaker, in the Western Cape's Eastern region, where I am proudly from, soos julle kan agterkom, opportunity for the youth has multiplied under the DA and Premier Jalen Zille. Being a tourist and hospitality hotspot, the Garden Route District Municipality launched the APSA Cater Care program in 2014 to tackle the high rate of youth unemployment in our district. The program trains previously disadvantaged individuals in the hospitality sector to provide access to jobs in the local tourism industry. To date, the Cater Care program has an 89% success rate in placing learners in sustainable jobs in our region, with some learners having already completed a diploma in food preparation and patisserie. 70% of the Cater Care learners are also placed on a solid career path by qualifying for the National Youth Chefs Training Program, of which last year's top student in South Africa was from this Cater Care program. I'm currently in possession of numerous testimonies from beneficiaries of the program in which they express their sincere gratitude to Premier Zille for ushering in a government which has changed their lives. It is no wonder why the DA support has increased by 400% in Neisner, considering the wealth of opportunities created for the local people by this government under Premier Jalen Zille's leadership. But, Honourable Deputy Speaker, these successes are replicated across this province as well. In Premier Jalen Zille's government, under the Department of Economic Opportunities, 10,471 Western Cape learners have entered workplace-based learning programs as part of the Western Cape government's apprenticeship game changer between the period of June 2016 and September 2018. Premier Zille has upheld her promise to create opportunity by investing in learnerships and artisan skills development to meet the increasing demand in our province. Premier, namens ons landelike en uitgebreide Wes-Kaap gemeenskap wil ek u bedank vir u lewensveranderende leierskap deur die woorde aan te haal van die gedig Hoop deur A.G. Visser en dit lees as volg. Getors, maar weer die sware las, die skouer aan die wiel gepas, die krag wat spier en seën sterk, die ope sesamie is werk, die mag wat wondere verrig, die dryfveer van die wil is plig, u het u plig gedoen, ons gaan nou skouer aan die wiel na 8 Mei om hierdie sukses van u voor te dryf. Baie dankie.
Order, the Honourable Beerwinkel.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. Deputy Speaker, I have to mention the vitriol that was spewed here by the DA Premier candidate, which had nothing to do with SOPA, was just shocking to say the least. The DA needs to stop running away from their social responsibilities, which is the real cause of crime, and not the police. But let me get to my speech. Deputy Speaker, while the new dawn is taking shape across the country, South Africans are having renewed hope for the future, even amongst your base. That, Speaker, is the Ramaphoria we all know and talk about, but which they fear. Speaker, not too long ago, this party only had Jacob Zuma and Nkandla to speak about, to give them relevance. The worst thing that happened to them was Cyril Ramaphosa. Nou is hulle wind uit. Your by-elections show, your by-election results show, and you should not cherry-pick your results to show your growth. Good is coming for you. That makes them scared of the upcoming elections. They fear what Cyril Ramaphosa has done for the country and the confidence he has given both business people and investors. And their leader, Musi Maimane, found that out in a rude way in his supposed SONA presentation. In short, Speaker, this party suffers from Ramaphobia. What makes it worse for them is the upcoming elections, their legacy of failure in this province. On Friday, the Premier delivered a sober speech riddled with statistics and anecdotes, and of your supposed legacy, and those who deserted the speech were labeled as political delinquents. All of those stats meant nothing to the people who are today in the gallery, not the whites who were here the other day. So let's look at your legacy. And for the Speaker, let me take this House on a short human journey of people in the township and those in the leafy suburbs for which this party only caters amidst their denials. Unlike the DA speeches that crisscross from province to national, hiding from their responsibility, it had no relevance even today to the people sitting here. And while I'm welcoming people, let me welcome the business people from Swellendam up there, Deputy Speaker. This journey is the story of Nosipo, a single mother from the Cape Flats with a minor child. She arrived here in 2009, someone whom the Speaker later referred to as a refugee. This Nosipo is the domestic worker of Isaac, and whose family also arrived here in 2009, but he moved into a fancy house on the Atlantic seaboard. On a daily basis, Nosipo travels to Isaac's house by 3 taxis. Later, 3 taxis later, because this government did not seem her worthy or human enough for the My City bus route to go to her suburb. Nosipo reports to work to look after little Simon, Isaac's son, while leaving her own minor child unsupervised. Nosipo can't live close to work because this government sold off opportunities to build affordable housing for her close to work against public opinion and sound advice. Nosipo gives motherly care and love to little Simon, all this while her own child must dodge gangster bullets, navigate through taxis, and walk to the local overcrowded schools because you and your government, DA, decided to close schools on the Cape Flats, not on the Atlantic seaboard. Little Simon gets dropped off daily basis and fetched by his mom's SUV or by Uber, but he never gets to see or feel the experience of a taxi. That is the real legacy of Premier Zille. Speaker, let's just take a detour on this journey. Nosipo's being a good mother teaches her child healthy habits and behavior and moral standards. But what does this DA government do? They decide that it's okay to sell alcohol at school in the name of fundraising. In so doing, they not only undermine Nosipo's good teachings and parental responsibilities, but also corporatize our society to the highest bidder. The most uncaring MEC of education, again, is offering comments across the floor the other day when we spoke about privatizing of schools as, so what? Double standards. Speaker, on her way from school, Thandi is caught in the crossfire between rival gangs. If this happened to little Simon, he would have access to the best private health care and well-resourced medical facilities within breathing distance from home. Not so Thandi. Thandi can only use public hospitals if she gets there alive, because you, DA, and your government failed to address the root causes of crime, which is drugs and gangsterism in our areas, not the police. This placed paramedics at risk when coming to our areas. If she does manage to get to Khayelitsha Hospital alive, she will be just one of another 100 already waiting to be attended by overworked staff in a severely under-resourced health facility. That's the real state of this province under the DA rule. Speaker, Nosipo's brother Mzi has to cross the N2 to go to work in the airport industrial area on a daily basis, but not over a footbridge, because this DA government did not regard him human and worthy enough to have a safe pathway across the N2. Yet, in Milnerton, just up the road, not far from here, new footbridges are being built, old ones are being revamped at an exorbitant cost where there is no danger and people use it to walk their dogs. That inequality is this Premier's legacy. Speaker, let me take another short detour on this journey with NOSIPO. Our Constitution provides for various institutions supporting democracy. One of those is the Office of the Auditor General. The role of this office is to ensure, amongst other things, that corporate governance principles are adhered to when the executive must deliver services. In this regard, the legislature, with its oversight mandate, also must ensure that the executive delivers, and if they fail, they must be held to account for it. Here, we have a premier candidate in the form of MEC Alan Winde, who for 2 years, 2 consecutive years, failed to do so, and then ran to court. Let's look at this government's attitude towards the AG's office, Deputy Speaker. When it suits this provincial government under this party, especially at the national government level, they endorse with much fanfare the findings and recommendations of the Auditor General and the Public Protector. Yet in this province, as recent as last year, when the Auditor General's office made recommendations that didn't suit them, they ran to the High Court, with public money hiding behind legal doctrines like the sub judice rule to dodge having to account to the legislature. So why is all of this important to NOSIPO? A provincial government that does not account or deliver services fails its citizens, like NOSIPO, like Thandi, like Mzi. So, Speaker, at the end of this journey, what have we seen? We've seen a government that perpetuates rampant inequality in spite of their open society mantra, a government with policies that destroys social norms, cohesions, and values, a government that entrenches white male domination in the workplace, a government that for years mismanaged natural resources like water, only to punish the ratepayers with higher tariffs. While on the issue of local government responsibility...
Member Beveridge, just 1 second. There's a member on the floor.
Deputy Speaker, I rise on a point of order.
Yes, I'm listening.
Deputy Speaker, I think running comments is allowed, but it can't drowse like 2 MECs and the Honourable Member Mackenzie doing the whole time. If you can just...
Yes, I will have a look at that. Thank you. I did not hear that they were doing that, but I will keep an eye on them. May I continue?
Thank you. While on the issue of local government, Deputy Speaker, and their responsibility, why is that that NOSIPO suburb is underserviced, lacks adequate sanitation and bulk sewage services, yet Isaac and his family enjoy flush toilets and running water at the press of a button? When the people in NOSIPO's suburb asked for toilets, they were given porta-pottas. NOSIPO lives this inequality by seeing what little Simon enjoys and takes for granted, and sees what her daughter Thandi is deprived of on a daily basis, in the same province, in the same city, under the DA rule. Speaker, those who deserted the SOPA on Friday were labelled political delinquents. If I was at national government, I would speak about Eskom. I'm at the Western Cape. But Speaker, those who perpetuate these real inequalities...
Order. Akhbare Fritz and Akhbare Mackenzie. Order. Allow the member the silence he deserves. He's almost done with the speech. Member, you may continue. You have about 40 seconds left.
Almost done, Speaker. But, Speaker, those who perpetuate these life inequalities in our areas, our workplaces, and in our schools must then surely be apartheid's remnants still lurking in this province. These inequalities, Premier, are your real legacy, and no amount of marketing, propaganda, and spin doctoring or political rhetoric will change NOSIPO's lived experience. You had 10 years to prove her standard of living, and many and millions others. You failed dismally. I thank you.
Thank you, Member. Honourable Minister Madikizela, Minister of Human Settlements.
Thank you very much, Mr. Deputy Speaker. Mr. Deputy Speaker.
Order.
I'd like to thank Premier Zille for not only delivering a speech that gives hope to the people of the Western Cape and the people of South Africa during these dark days of our democracy, but for also laying a very strong foundation for the new term of government, which will be under the Democratic Alliance as we prepare for the 6th democratic elections on the 8th of May. This year, Madam Speaker, Deputy Speaker, marks 25 years since the dawn of democracy in South Africa. We have achieved a lot as a country since 1994, and we are grateful to those functioning state institutions like the Independent Electoral Commission that still ensures that we are able to hold elections every 5 years without fail. And it's something that we must not take for granted because it's not happening in other countries. We are also grateful for our independent judiciary and many men and women in South Africa who are still honest, hard-working servants of our people. Premier Zille falls into that category. We thank her for her passionate, inspiring, and visionary leadership in the province of the Western Cape. But unfortunately, Deputy Speaker, a lot has gone wrong in our country. And our success as a country must never be compared to the previous government prior to 1994. I think when the ANC does that, they're setting the bar very, very low. We must compare ourselves with ourselves. We must compare what we have achieved and what we could have achieved if we did not have the rot that is happening in the national government, where it is estimated that almost 700 billion rands has been lost since 1994. Deputy Speaker, this debate comes at a time when several commissions are revealing the real state of our nation. A far cry from what was delivered by President Ramaphosa on the 7th of February. It comes at a time when we are grappling with Eskom's devastating impact on our economy, which will add more people to the list of unemployed South Africans who are already sitting at about 10 million rand in South Africa. And yes, Member Pierre Winkel, Eskom does impact in the Western Cape as well. The contrast between Ramaphosa's State of the Nation address and Zille's State of the Province address is quite telling, Mr. Deputy Speaker. It's an illustration of a failing national government under the ANC and a progressing provincial government under the DA. This should make the choice for the voters on the 8th of May a very simple one. So it would be funny if it wasn't serious to hear the ANC in this province making many hollow and empty promises on things they are failing to do elsewhere where they are in government. Because if you look at every promise that the ANC is making, I would want the ANC to show us Minister, where they've achieved what they are promising.
Just take your seat, Minister. Honourable Sitchin.
Speaker, can you tell the ministers to keep quiet? Because they are continuing their own
I will keep an eye on them. I wasn't aware that they were interfering, but I will keep an eye. Minister, you may continue.
Yes.
And Honourable Fritz, I'm sense he's referring to you. Please listen, okay? You may continue.
On many challenges facing our country, Deputy Speaker, Premier Zille clearly outlined what we are already doing, not what we are planning to do. After 25 years in government, the ANC is still planning to do things that we're already doing in this province. Let me just mention a practical example of what I'm talking about. On 4 issues that are very crucial in this time of our democracy. The first issue is joblessness that we are grappling with in South Africa. The second one is the land reform that the ANC has been talking about. The third one is provision of basic services. And the fourth one, of course, is the energy. Under Premier Zille, we have created 508,000 new jobs since our term of office 10 years ago. in the Western Cape, a growth of 24.8% between 2009 and last year in 2018. Our unemployment rate is the lowest in the country. Nationally, now let's compare this with what is happening nationally. Nationally, Deputy Speaker, under the ANC government, between the third quarter of 2008 and the third quarter of 2018, the number of persons who were in long-term unemployment increased by a whopping 1.7 million people. That is according to the Stats SA. This means 170,000 people a year joined the unemployment queue during this period. Now, that is the ANC legacy. A lot has been said about land reform by many parties, particularly the ANC, blowing a hot air. In fact, the ANC is now reneging on the promise that they made to fast-track land reform because that was a political gimmick in the first place. Since 2014, this government has spent more than 500 million supporting 357 land reforms, which resulted in 72% success rate. Now compare that with only 10% success rate nationally. We have also ensured that more than 103,000 people own the homes that they are living in. We have issued title deeds. They are not just a resident in those homes, but they are property owners. Now, if you look at the provision of basic services, I mean, Member Provincial told a very lovely story about Nosipo, about Mzi. But here's the reality. At least those people that is making an example of, they are working. It might not be a decent job, but compared to the 1.7 million people that I spoke about that joined the queue, they are better off. 14 out of 20 municipalities in South Africa with the highest access to sanitation are in this province, Madam Speaker. Access to pipe water, electricity, and waste removal is almost 100% in this province compared to other provinces, because we must compare apples with apples. We have achieved all this, Madam Speaker, despite the massive population growth of almost 2 million people in 15 years. While President Ramaphosa is shocked and angry that we are experiencing load shedding because of his government failures to fix Eskom and our state-owned enterprises, under this Premier Zille, we have invested in renewable energy because we have realized that the national government is failing. And that is why 70% of South Africa's renewable energy is manufactured here in the Western Cape. We are now the fastest growing green economy in the world, according to the rating agency Moody's. Now, this is the difference between the ANC government and the DA government. Now, realizing how embarrassing it would be to hear this contrast, the ANC tried, without success, to mobilize people as a show of force on the day of the State of the Province address. And they promised to bring 3,000 people, but unfortunately only about 10% of the people that showed up. Now, instead of listening to this incredible delivery record of the Democratic Alliance in the Western Cape, they staged a walkout. Now, someone once said, the Western Cape ANC is the worst opposition. In fact, they don't know how to be an effective opposition. That person was putting it mildly. The ANC is so desperate to perform better in the Western Cape. Now, I say perform better because they know that they're not going to win. In fact, it's a fact they considered a long time ago. They are so desperate to perform better to an extent that they are spreading this false narrative about their delivery record when they were in government in the Western Cape. Now, let me give you facts about their delivery record here, particularly in housing or human settlements. Now, the ANC says it delivered around 20,000 houses during its term of office. Now, I don't believe that's true. Now, the truth is, no one knows for sure how many houses the ANC delivered. Now, here is the reason. Here's the reason why I don't believe. Now, the truth is, no one knows how many houses the ANC delivered in this province, because according to the Auditor General, There are no records of that delivery. But here's what I know for sure, Madam Speaker. Here's what I know for sure, is that when I took over this department in 2009...
Minister Madikizela, kindly take your seat, please. There is too much noise on both sides of the House. We cannot drown out a speaker on the floor, so I'm appealing to both sides of the House. Kindly reduce your volume to allow the Minister to continue. You may proceed, Minister.
But here's what I know for sure. When I took over this department in 2009, I discovered that 42 projects were blocked. Now, the meaning of a block project is where money was spent, those houses were counted, but they were non-existent or incomplete, affecting, listen to this, Madam Speaker, affecting 887 families. This department had to spend 71.9 million to rebuild those houses. Now, that is the legacy of the ANC. In addition to that, Madam Speaker, we had to rectify, 2,608 houses that were badly built by the ANC government, spending over 43 million rand. Those houses as well were counted as part of the ANC legacy. In many houses built by the ANC, please. Now, in many houses built by the ANC, up until today, people have not received their title deeds. The study we conducted on many of these projects had even more shocking revelations, Madam Speaker. It became evident that many houses that were built under the ANC government were built without following due processes, like township establishment, like zoning, like pegging, etc., which means those people will never own their houses until all those processes are redone. Now, again, the ANC likes to come here and grandstand and pretend to care about farm workers. During their term of office, not a single farm worker was registered on the housing demand database. In fact, we started that process in 2011 to make sure that all the farm workers are registered on the housing demand database.
Honourable David.
Many farm workers now are homeowners after we embarked on that process. Now, that is a shocking legacy of the ANC that they are bragging about. Now, we have created more than 213,000 housing opportunities that are verifiable. That's 21,300 housing opportunities per year, despite the budget cuts in today's value compared to previous years. Now, I also need to make this point very clear, because the leader of the opposition misled this House. He can go on records. There are annual performance plans that indicates that not a single cent of this department was ever sent back.
Minister Madikizela, you need to finish up, please. Your time has just about expired.
As I conclude, Madam Speaker, we still have many challenges in the Western Cape. We do not pretend that things are perfect here.
Thank you.
But we spend 82% of our budget to the poor, and our track record speaks for itself. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I now see the Honourable Member Dalen Mitchell. Member Mitchell.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, when Premier Helen Zille ascended into government in 2009, her courage and determination directed this government to embark on the road less travelled. I would like to use this opportunity granted to me to showcase how the lives of thousands of youth and other vulnerable groupings in our society have been changed by this caring DA-led government over the past decade. As a caring government, we have expanded social services to those individuals who are the most vulnerable across all communities in the province. The youth and children was one of the key strategic priorities for this government. In fact, Madam Speaker, the Premier dedicated a final term in office to the youth of the Western Cape. Madam Speaker, I'm reminded of my journey and how the opportunities provided to me changed not only my life, but the lives of my family. With a single opportunity, the lives of my siblings changed. With one job in every household, the lives of the rest of the family could also change. But today, I would like to pay tribute to every single person with disabilities, those fighting substance abuse, those women and children who have been victims of rape and other forms of violence, those people working hard to provide a life for their families, and those youth who continue to lose hope as a consequence of a lack of opportunities. Madam Speaker, over the past decade, this caring DA-led government, under the trusted leadership and guidance of Premier Zille, has continued to strive to build a society and Western Cape in which each and every single citizen can truly live a life that they value. Madam Speaker, one key imperative for the new administration was how the lives of our youth could be improved. Consequently, early on, Premier Zille identified that a focus on youth development would be critical to any successful nation-building initiatives adopted. After all, youth are not only the leaders of tomorrow, but also the partners of today. Young people, Madam Speaker, are social actors of change and progress. They are a crucial part of a nation's development. Their contribution, therefore, is highly needed. Madam Speaker, a key component of this caring DA-led government's success has been the emphasis on playing a supportive role and creating an enabling environment conducive for the empowerment and prosperity of the youth in our province. The progress made in this regard is a cause for huge optimism, not only for the Western Cape, but for the rest of South Africa, who remains in desperate need of a caring government. Madam Speaker, the proof is in the pudding. And here's evidence to highlight the immense progress we have made in expanding opportunities to the youth across the province.
Order,
this
please.
year, Madam Speaker, this year alone, we will see 863 working opportunities provided to the youth from all across this province in the Premier's Advancement of Youth Project.
There is too much noise.
The importance of this program should never be underestimated, Madam Speaker. These 863 young people will not merely be earning a stipend while working in various government departments. More significantly, these perfectly capable but underprivileged young individuals will be provided with an opportunity to learn and explore a range of new people skills, problem-solving skills, and technical skills that other people won't have. Furthermore, they will be able to set their own boundaries and how to become self-sufficient and responsible as they get to learn this their own way through real-life experience. Madam Speaker, but since the DA took over, 9 youth cafes have been established, which serves more than 10,000 young people per every month. Youth cafes remain pivotal to assist those young people who are not in employment, education, or training. And through this initiative, Madam Speaker, this DA-led government restored hope to those young people who would otherwise be left to fall by the wayside. Under the experience of Premier Zille and Minister Fritz, the Minister of Social Development, this DA-led Western Cape government have quadrupled the number of youth benefiting from youth development services, from a shocking 5,600 in 2009 to 19,400 in 2018. Madam Speaker, it appears in other provinces that the ANC has neglected the importance of investing in the youth as to ensure that the leaders of tomorrow are equipped with the necessary tools to ensure that the country competes economically with the rest of the global world. This DA-led Western Cape government differs tremendously to what one would find across the country. Madam Speaker, when you pay attention to the beginning of a story, you can change the entire story. And today, the Western Cape paid attention to the beginning of the story and has the highest percentage of children in subsidized ECDs in the country. In 2018, the number of children in funded ECDs has increased to nearly 80,000 compared to 50,000 in 2009. This is achieved under a DA-led government. Madam Speaker, let me move over to substance abuse. Substance abuse is detrimental to the progress of a society. Substance abuse is detrimental to the progress of a society. The systematic economic inequalities that remains a feature of apartheid structural violence have had a devastating impact on communities as a whole and family units in particular. Our people from previously disadvantaged areas suffer the effects of very high rates of unemployment, family disruption, domestic violence, and alcohol and drug abuse. Having themselves at times been the victims of violence, Madam Speaker, they frequently exhibit the behavior patterns that resulted from unhealed trauma. But in order to combat this highly complex issues of substance abuse, Madam Speaker, this caring-led DA government has grown the network of funded substance abuse treatment centres from a shocking and a mere 7 in 2009 to 53 working at 81 sites across this province. This is achieved under a DA-led government, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, no man, woman or child deserves to be left behind, regardless of their age, their race or ethnicity, or whether they are a person with disabilities. This caring DA-led government remains the only provincial government if actively seeking to advance an inclusive environment in which one's individuality is not shunned upon, but celebrated and welcomed. Madam Speaker, like any person who does not have a disability, those persons with disability deserve every right not to only live a life of dignity, but also to live a life that they value. In our pursuit of establishing a Western Cape, where we are indeed better together, we have provided specialized services for persons with disabilities. Again, Madam Speaker, a shocking 120 people received assistance in 2009, and since the DA took over in 2018, that has dramatically increased to 88,000 people. This, Madam Speaker, goes to show that what can be achieved when a government puts its people at the center of government and a government actually cares. In conclusion, Madam Speaker, under the greatest premier our country has seen.
Order, please.
Under the greatest premier, and I've actually, Madam Speaker, this needs to go onto the record. Under the greatest premier that this country has ever seen, post-democratization, the last 10 years of a caring DA government in this province will be remembered in the history of South Africa as the period South Africa bore witness to its first capable state.
Mitchell,
we, the youth of this province, Madam Premier,
has expired.
I thank you.
Thank you. Members, order, please. Members, may I... I will recognize you, Honourable Nkondlo, when all of this discussion has ended. Honourable Makaleni, I'm waiting on you to have recognize your member, please. Thank you. You may proceed, Honourable Nkondlo.
Thank you, Speaker. To you, the Speaker of the House, honourable members, and our guest in the gallery, Molweni. Today, I place on record and wish to assert that this House must recognize and respect our existence as members, importantly as opposition parties that represent constituencies and voters with an equal voice and right in our country's democracy, as any act to constrain such shall be met with full and unwavering resistance. South Africa is a democratic country, a constitutional democracy, and a multi-party state. It's a fact, and it will remain so for a longer time. What is baffling here in this House...
Order, please. Honourable...
One of the things I think that comes out also of this debate that one needs to bring across, Honourable Speaker, is the challenge. I'm not sure whether it is a result of illiteracy from the members of the DA and our honorable members on the other side. This notion of not understanding the right of any citizen of South Africa to have freedom of movement. As people decide to move in any part of this country, a country of theirs, as part of the population register of this country, it is not because they are being done favors by the DA government, and that must be understood. And actually, urban migration is something that is an international phenomenon. And if members of the DA need a class, there is a conference by Stats SA with DSD to teach you, which I think you can attend, on the national migration and urbanization, because that is something that most countries are actually experiencing at this point, especially because we've got a youthful population. So I thought to just give you that for just for free. Today, as we are about to conclude the term of this parliament and its executive, we ought to reflect on the legacy lived within these walls. As we bid farewell to each other and Premier Zille, what shall we say was the journey? Yes, let's agree with her. It was a road less traveled, not because it was the best. And as members here and many citizens with a particular outlook and profile, we surely say good riddance. No longer as citizens, as countrymen and women, with our children, shall we be called refugees in the land of our forefathers just because of geographical issue of origin. No longer shall we be taken aback as we soldier on in healing our past, be reminded of our pain, anguish and degradation, only to be told such a system that killed and maimed our brothers and sisters in Sharpeville and Kwalanga, that system brought civilization and should be celebrated. No longer our indigenous people, the Khoi and the San, will be ignored, and our identity as people of tradition and with structures be frowned upon by a government that is meant to serve us. Thank you to democracy, as now we are given an opportunity to effect change as we did to the same system of apartheid that practiced similar monkey tricks. DA and your Premier Helen Zille, your time is up. Tell no lies, claim no easy victories. Judge Mukhweng asserts the rule of law, Honorable Fritz, entails for both the legislature and the executive that they are constrained.
Please direct your inquiry to the chair, not directly to the minister.
By the principle that they may exercise no power and perform no function beyond that what is conferred on them by the law. In this sense, the Constitution entrenches the principle of legality and provides the foundation for the control of public power. As an honorable member of this House, we have to check what has you, as a Premier and a member of this House, how have you upheld the rule of law? You have been, on several occasions, be booted out of this House due to defiant behavior against the rules of this House and ruling by the Speaker. As an honorable member and the first person of this province, Honorable Premier, you have gone on rampage through your Twitter rants and ravings to undermine the project of social cohesion and building unity and racial tolerance as you choose to use academic theatrics and innuendos in spitting on the painful past of the black society of the black section of the society that you are entrusted to lead, and some voted for you. As an honorable member and the leader of government in this province, you have undermined the Western Cape Provincial Constitution by ignoring Section 17 and Section 71 and 78 provisions, which make it compulsory for the appointment of commissioners of children and environment. Only through pressure, not by adherence to the rule of law, you succumbed and currently are introducing a bill in this regard. And all this came at a cost of 50 children's lives during the first half of both 2017 and 2018. Your claim to fame is growing the economy of this province. Can you demonstrate the equitable distribution of this economic benefit? Who is it growing for, and who are its players? How far have you gone in correcting the inequalities of the past, especially in a province where the colonialism project was launched? The Western Cape Metro 2018 show inequalities in income distribution within the Cape Metro remain the highest in the province. Inequalities in income distribution are generally high in almost all in the regions, with a Gini coefficient closer to 1 than 0 in the past 10 years. So tell us, who has this economy grown for? Under the ANC governance between 2009 and 2004 and 9, the Western Cape economy grew faster than the period of the DA governance. That is a fact. Under the ANC, the Western Cape grew by an annualized 5.5%, but under the DA, it's been 1.9%. In a 2018 Messrs Quality of Living survey, it ranked Durban the best city and the highest locally and internationally, ranking number 87 and Cape Town number 94. You have Mayor Mashaba to ask why. Gauteng created the largest number of jobs in 2018 with 172,000 new jobs. KZN was second with 135 new jobs, followed by Limpopo with 59,000, and then Western Cape with 29,000 new jobs. In Gauteng, the number of people employed doubled from 2.6 million in 1996 to 5.163 million in 2018, and yet you boast of 508,000 jobs created over the same period, and you want to compare yourself with Gauteng.
Kondo, kindly take your seat. There is too much noise. Please, members, I am addressing you. You are drowning out the speaker. I cannot hear the honourable member. You may proceed, Honourable Nkondlo.
And you want to compare yourself with Gauteng. I am sure it's a product of maths lit. The Western Cape economy shed jobs in the agriculture sector due to drought and the poor management and planning of your cabinet. That led to the scarecrow manufactured by you and your party, Day Zero. Its effects to the hospitality industry as confirmed by Westgro Judy Lane that January 2018 income for 18 of the city's top hotels was 10% to 15% lower than it was in 2017. Even Minister Alan Winde was dressing here, unparliamentary in this house, with a Day Zero t-shirt and was quoted saying Day Zero message was bad for business and it needs to be softened.
Order.
But what did you do? But what did you do and your DA government?
Order, please. Minister Fritz. Order, please. Honourable Nkondlo, kindly take your seat, please. Members, there is a member on the floor. Is it a point of order, Honourable Gillian? Yes. Order.
Speaker, Honourable Speaker. Is it parliamentary for the MEC who's disturbing this house the whole day to make signs like this?
Honourable Gillian.
No, you're not the speaker.
I can't look at Hansard, but I can ask the minister to desist. As with your finger, desist from doing the action, Minister, please.
But Speaker.
Thank you.
I've raised when the Deputy Speaker was in the chair regarding Minister Fritz's behavior. The whole day, Speaker. The whole day.
Shall I send him to the naughty corner?
It's unacceptable for MEC to behave like this.
Minister Fritz, I'm cautioning you as per a point of order which is sustained. Please compose yourself. Honourable Nkondlo, you may proceed.
Thank you, Honourable Speaker. But what did you do in your DA government? You transferred this crisis to the taxpayer and introduced exorbitant tariffs that the ANC has managed to expose your DA-run city with cases of litigants from ratepayers that were not willing to be used as cash foders for Day Zero. This was worsened with the imposed water meter devices introduced in the Cape Flats townships, which are mainly faulty and led to families going for more than 3 days without water, a basic right of SA citizens guaranteed in the Constitution that you swore to uphold and protect. We ask you to provide us, as we have been painfully asking over the past 10 years, for a detailed account of these jobs, so to take comfort that indeed the citizens' promised jobs are in fact matched and in jobs as reported. All I hear is job opportunities. What is your response to Veynard Fifer, 64-year-old and Angora goat and sheep farmer living about 30 kilometers outside of Beaufort West and has been running the family business since 1976? He has this to say.
Order,
there's
please.
no good
Honourable
reason.
Nkondlo, kindly take your seat, please. Minister Fritz, are you rising on a point of order?
Is the very honourable member prepared to take a question?
Take your seat, please, Minister Fritz. Honourable Nkondlo, will you take a question? The member's not prepared to take a question. Thank you, Minister. You may proceed.
He has this to say. There is no good reason to bring your children to the farming business. He says this as a matter of fact, and most farmers in that region are opting to sell. Where is the lauded business rescue plan of the then Minister Winde and now acting Premier and Premier candidate? Should Western Cape voters pull wool over their eyes of your performance and put their faith and generational legacy on your hands? With Minister Bradell, your drought management interventions have evaporated into thin air, as Laingsburg and Beaufort West are hard hit by effects of drought, as the other regions are taking a moment's sigh of relief from the rains. The gift of the givers with Geoscience Council had to come to the rescue with donating additional boreholes as water shedding becomes the order of the day and some boreholes are drying up. What has been your record, Honourable Premier, and your DA party in the eyes of SMMEs and fulfilling your constitutional obligation and noble fight you pull for all who care to listen of your association with Steve Biko, a man who understood and fought till his last breath about a black man's right to freedom, including economic freedom? You have built an economy running a budget with a total expenditure of 62.7 billion as per the payroll of 2018. You tell the public that you spend about 80 billion since 2009 in public infrastructure, excluding funds from private sector. Tell us how much and what percentage of this went to grade 1 to 4 and grade 5 to 9 CIDP graded contractors, with the former as both subcontractors and main contractor in those jobs. How much and the number of these contractors, how many of them are from local areas and the regional economies where the actual works were being done? From the provincial budget spend, a group of black and non-halal is sitting in this gallery led by Ms. Funeka Mpeta, Ms. Xolani Chandu, and Noluvuyo Njoko. Their complaint has been a catering specification from about 4 of your departments since around 2016 to date, led by one of the noisy ministers in the House, Minister Fritz.
Your time has expired. You must finish your sentence.
We have asked on the halal certificate. What we are asking is for you, Premier, to answer because this matter was brought onto your attention. As I conclude, thank you, Honourable Speaker. The road travelled made the rich richer and poor even more poorer, and we shall meet in Ngomhlaka 8 May 2019.
Is it a point of order, Honourable Macrosella? Quiet. Order, please, members.
Honourable Speaker, your ruling on the guests participating in that corner.
Okay. Thank you, Honourable Macrosella. If I may, I need to just alert the guests that you are not allowed to participate in the proceedings. That includes no clapping, interjections, heckling. So please be guided by the rules as they are printed on the wall and on the reverse of your tickets. Failure to honour that request will leave me with an option to ask you to leave the gallery. I now see the Honourable the Minister of Health, Minister Mbombo.
Honourable Premier, Madam Speaker, members of the House, in this House, guests in the gallery, specifically the youth from the Mitchells Plain, it's good to see you again. Good afternoon. Madam Speaker, I want first to commend the Premier for her excellent SOPA on Friday, in which she showcased the change we brought to this province 10 years ago when the DA came into power. Siyakubulela ngesikhokelo osinike sona. They may throw all the dirt on your character, but one thing for sure, deep down, they know you have no match in the history of post-democratic South Africa to manage the best province in terms of the service delivery. But at a personal level, I just want to thank you for giving me the opportunity. And probably because a member of the opposition did mention about a black African woman who has to leave the Western Cape, I want to indicate that the opportunity specifically that now I can be able to say I'm the first ever woman, I'm the first ever black African to have ever been the Minister of Health in the Western Cape in any area. Not only in the DA.
Order, please.
Not only in the DA, not ever in the ANC, not ever in the National Party, not ever in any other parties. But it wasn't, it's not about...
Minister Mbombo, kindly take your seat, please. Maybe get some order, please. Thank you. You may proceed.
As I was responding to Member Makakla about that, and it's not about my color, it's about fit for the purpose. Because Member Makakla mentioned something about the lady who was a chartered accountant.
Honourable members, Honourable Chacham, you cannot drown out the speaker, please. Collectively, all the noise is drowning out the speaker. May I request, and please, you can engage the Minister after the session with the questions you have. You may proceed, Minister.
Yes, thank you. Thank you also for prioritizing health in your budget allocation. Western Cape allocates more percentage of its provincial budget to health as compared to other provinces. It is.
Order, please.
That the Western Cape has government, 10 years of good governance in a capable state, delivering services efficiently, honestly, and cost-effectively. We have worked hard under pressurized circumstances to keep our promises of delivering quality health for all.
Honourable Lekki, sorry, Minister Mbombo, please take your seat. Honourable Lekki, you are speaking so loudly that I cannot hear the Minister on the floor. May I request that you keep your tone down whilst we have a speaker? You are allowed to talk, but not so loudly that you drown out the speaker. Thank you. You may proceed, Minister.
We have worked hard under pressurized circumstances to keep our promises of delivering quality health for all, and we made sure that every rand goes to quality service delivery, especially for those who most need it. I need also to emphasize that we do not have clinics or any health facilities and provide any kind of facilities in the rich areas. We've got no clinics in the Bishop's Court, we've got no clinics in Clifton, we've got no clinics in Pentry Bay. 75% of the total population of the Western Cape are being serviced by us. Health system, I must indicate, health system national are experiencing severe service pressures. The effects of a depressed fiscal climate and a high burden of communicable and concomitant disease continue to be felt throughout service platforms. Patients experience longer waiting times due to the demand for health services that has been on the rise over the past few years. Now, with the load shedding that is happening, all health systems, they are coming from the drought. With the load shedding that is happening, it will impact more on health, especially when there will be a time that there will be total shutdown of the electricity. Health departments across the country are on the verge of collapse, and when we look at what we have offered citizens in this province over the past decades, we have realized that Western Cape citizens enjoy the best care compared to the level of services elsewhere in the country. Yes, there's still more to do. Yes, there's still more to do. Whilst we have done a lot, yes, Western Cape faces challenges. Yes, we err and find ourselves on the wrong side of patients' expectation. But what matters is that each incident becomes a lesson for further improvement. We apologize and not dismiss when we're wrong. Western Cape is a victim of its own success. People do come in and migrate in search of seeking for jobs, better schooling, better education, and better healthcare services, just like me, who are coming from the Eastern Cape. Some come purely to access essential services that are lacking in their provinces. And you must note that the most people who do the in-migration, not only in the Western Cape, but also to the Gauteng, are where we find that there's a higher unemployment. Yes, we have major challenges on waiting times, but eventually people will be seen and get the best treatment. Yes, some patients may take longer to be admitted because of the high demands, but compared to other provinces, our waiting times are as a result of service demand. It's because of the service demand, because ANC failed people from other provinces.
Order,
we have seen
Honourable David.
the exodus of doctors and nurses leaving those provinces in search for better working conditions in the Western Cape, as they cannot take it anymore because of those conditions. We'll find that there's no equipment, there's mismanagement of funds, there's a looting, there's a corruption. I can make an example. Free State, what the AG found, they found that it's the worst performing department, health department. KZN oncology crisis and the recent mortuary crisis. Eastern Cape's province medical malpractice stand at 23 billion. Actually, their liability is more than their budget. GP, we can keep on soliciting. Northern Cape infrastructure is appalling, with some buildings still unfinished for the past 5 years.
Order, please.
Service providers do not get paid. Limpopo, it's sitting with a 2 billion needed to solve their health crisis. In the northwest, we can't talk about northwest, but they're under administration. Mpumalanga has got 1 billion debt.
There is too much noise.
We do have the good story to tell. In Western Cape, people live longer than in any other provinces. Do you know why? We invest in the lives of the people. This essentially speaks to the quality of care and access to health care in the Western Cape. A healthy population is an economic investment. Sick people can't go to work and thus impact on their income. We create a healthy population. Madam Speaker, we not only live longer, but also here in the Western Cape, 91.5% of the citizens have access to health services within 30 minutes of their residence. In the rural and farm areas, we provide transport. If you see our minibuses, our buses, where they pick up people from 230 points across the province. The system is unique to the whole Western Cape, and it's only in the Western Cape. We are the only province to have digitized patient records in public health care. This is to improve the waiting times, access and coverage. The ANC has a 5-year e-health strategy that has expired in 2017 and no implementation. So that's why almost all the MECs in the 8 provinces, they come here and we teach them how to do it. Madam Speaker, the President, Cyril Ramaphosa, promised us the world when he announced the President's stimulus package intended to strengthen the human resource. With this package, Western Cape will receive additional 204 interns and a total of 125 other posts. We want to thank the President for prioritizing posts. We have been talking about the critical posts we want to thank, but to date, we only got money for 204 medical interns, 125 posts, dololo, there's no money. This is exactly what made Gauteng and the Northern Cape, where last month they didn't have salaries. But I also must add that that money, it's a money that is under expenditure from the NHI that they've been preaching about. So whilst we might be thanking the President, but there was no money anyway. In the Western Cape, our staff comes first. It is unacceptable that 2 decades post-democracy, young doctors still work 30 hours shift without a break. It's only in the Western Cape where we reduce those hours. We reduced those hours, and we even made a suggestion to the national in terms of how they can legislate this. We gave them in terms of the guidance. Lastly, Madam Speaker, we heard the national minister was talking about the NHI in the SONA debate. You need to understand that the minister has been there for over 10 years as the national health minister. With the NHI that was approved in the ANC Congress in the 2003, the question is, why are they now want to implement the NHI when all along they couldn't? Why? It's because they want to loot. It's because they want to loot. They want to centralize. If 8 MECs, politicians, have messed up, how can you put all the health of all the nine provinces and put under one politician? They want to loot. How do we entrust for start?
Order.
If
Minister
NHI
Mbombo, kindly take your seat. Both sides of the bench. Minister Mayor, I'm sorry that I need to call you out for fueling this discussion. Similarly, on this side of the bench, it's disrespectful to engage in a debate whilst there is a speaker on the floor. Compose yourself, please. You may proceed, Minister Mbombo.
If NHI is about fixing the health services, explain why the health sector budget has been reduced tremendously. 7 billion for the past 3 years when they've reduced the health sector. So explain again, how come that this money that the president has promised us, it doesn't come from the National Treasury budget, but they are using the money that is supposed for something else. Explain how come that the national government has managed to save and bail the SOEs, the SAPC. Have you ever heard any time that they say they'll bail health services? Yet the national minister keeps on saying that the health services are under stress. So it mustn't be about their prioritizing health. Nobody's in prioritizing health. So, Madam Speaker, in the Western Cape, we are well on our way to universal health coverage. We are not waiting for them in terms of the NHI, but we make it a point that we are piloting. And we're not leaving anyone behind with the province of the Eastern Cape, in the province of the KZN, and tomorrow we are meeting with those MECs where we'll be assisting them. Watch the space. We're already working with those provinces. To conclude, I want to thank the head of the health and the entire team for their work and dedication to this government.
Please finish
Clean
up, Minister.
and accountable governance reinforces public trust in the way that you manage the public purse. And to all the 32,000 employees which are part of my team, I want to thank them for their bravery in dealing with the pressures we deal with on a daily basis.
Thank you, Minister.
At least they know that when they go low, we go up. We are professionals, first and foremost. We'll always be like that.
Thank you so much. I now recognize the Honourable Member Murray Winger.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. To quote James Clark, a politician thinks of the next election, a statesman thinks of the next generation. Friday's SOPA and reflection on 10 years of good governance showed that thoughtful leadership and statesmanship by the Premier and this Cabinet has left this province a better place for the next generation. There's still a lot of work to do, and there are too many people out of work, and services are understrained, and lives can and must be improved. But ours is a belief in the future, in a better South Africa for all. The Democratic Alliance is working and fighting for the next generation, and not just the next election. I wonder if the same could be said about our colleagues on the opposing benches. The ANC's real State of the Province campaign could certainly be said to be thinking of the next election, but failed to think of the next generation. They were politicking on what is wrong and not what could be right, politicking on attack and not on solutions. The ANC would do well to look internally at the departments that are run by the national ANC government. The criminal justice system is a national government-run system. The conviction rate for gang-related murders and attempted murders is 3%. If the ANC genuinely cared about delivering justice, they would tackle this head on. If the ANC were really serious about crime, they would join us in fighting for police resources. During the ANC's 10 years government of the Western Cape, the national government gave the SAPs in our province on average 1,260 new police recruits each year. By contrast, over the last 10 years that the DA has been in government, the national government has only given the SAPs an average of 570 new police recruits each year. That's 40% less than what the ANC gave itself. There is no way the ANC can claim to care about crime or safety. If anything, they have a lot of explaining to do to the people of this province. Mr. Deputy Speaker, the Premier delivered her State of the Province address, which showcased 10 years of good governance. The ANC showcased a flopped protest where there were more police present than protesters. Their real State of the Province did not table an alternative, not a single policy proposal, much like today. A lot of criticism from the opposition benches,
but no credible alternative. No thinking on how to tackle these very real problems. No bold or better ANC plan to make lives better. Today, if ever, is a good opportunity to talk about the real state of the province, because yes, there are many things that don't work in the Western Cape. There are many things that hinder development and a better life. So let's be honest. There's no bold or better ANC plan. How could there be if almost exclusively those things that are a barrier to progress are run by the ANC? The ANC can't keep the lights on. And the price, estimated at 12 billion rand, is paid by ordinary South Africans. Increased electricity costs exacerbated by rolling blackouts. Load shedding is killing jobs and making life harder for South Africans. Eskom has been the ANC's Sisyphean task. Task team after task team, it has not been able to fix Eskom because it lacks a coherent plan that its alliance partners can back, and it lacks the political will to implement. Power production is a national power, and similar to bulk electricity supply, bulk water supply is also in short supply. The National Department of Water is dysfunctional as a result of staff shortages and corruption, and the real impact was an almost catastrophe in Cape Town last year. Again, the ANC lacks a coherent plan and the political will to tackle corruption. These very real challenges directly impact on us. They directly and negatively affect the residents of the Western Cape. And what doesn't work in the Western Cape is run by the ANC. Let's also talk rail, Mr. Deputy Speaker. The failure of the nationally run rail service is vast. Metro Rail in the Western Cape has not had functional CCTV cameras since 2015. Nearly 50% of Metro Rail policing vehicles are not working. And Metro Rail in the Western Cape does not have enough trains to function at minimum capacity. But the ANC is silent on this. There was no social media graphic or poster on the ailing and failing rail and the challenges that commuters face. Commuters who do not have a reliable, safe, or clean train service to get to and from work. Because what doesn't work in the Western Cape is run by the ANC. But instead of facing these challenges to fix them, the opposition has instead resorted to gimmicks and gutter politics. Last week, the ANC ran a campaign ahead of the SOPA which laid bare the ANC's cognitive dissonance. The ANC is suffering an acute case of doublethink, of simultaneously believing two contradictory things. So on the one hand, the ANC places responsibility for safety at the DA's door, to the extent that they put out the most distasteful social media banner depicting a dead body lying in a road with a person holding a gun over them and basically blaming the DA for murder in the Western Cape. On the other hand, they ardently affirm that the President and the Police Minister are responsible for safety in the Western Cape because they produced slogans for this very same march which read, "Thank you, President, anti-gang unit brings safety." They also claim credit for the unit, which the DA has been calling for 10 years. Perhaps if they'd listened to the DA a decade ago, there would be no need for such sinister social media adverts, and less people in this province would have died. Perhaps, Mr. Speaker, we should try broker a deal with the ANC. If they stop telling lies about us, we will stop telling the truth about them. Point scoring and inconsistency, like the ANC on crime, will not earn it respect. So today's debate should therefore not be about a performance, but rather the action that follows, yesterday, today, and tomorrow, and that should be the real test of our resolve. Thank you.
Honourable Member Joseph.
Thank you, Speaker. We are taking note of the different comments of the various political parties. One that I would like to respond to, but not waste time on it, is the ICDP. En ek wil hom graag weer in Afrikaans waar hy in sy kantoor sit en luister na die toespraak. Moet ek vir hom sê, hy moet Kolossense 3 vers 9 lees as 'n godsman en dat hy nie moet lieg vir die mense in die huis nie.
Orde, achtbare
Deputy
Joseph,
Speaker.
achtbare Joseph, ek hoor die sentiment van wat jy sê, maar die woord lieg teenoor 'n ander lid is nie parlementêr nie. Jy kan dit versag deur te sê
Ek sê
onwaarheid.
hy moet Kolossense 3 vers 9 lees. Unless as u sê dat hier is die Christelike waardes in die huis.
Nee.
Dankie.
Achtbare Joseph, orde. Maak Kolossense praat. Orde.
Hy het geluister, hy het geluister.
Orde, achtbare Joseph. Verwys Kolossense na die woord lieg.
Ja.
In orde, dan kan jy aangaan.
Om dit direk aan te haal, dit sê lieg nie vir mekaar nie.
Goed.
Deputy Speaker, I have listened to the speech of the Premier on Friday. It is quite clear that the Premier for the past 9-10 years have wasted the time to get the drafters of a speech to raise these issues. The same issues over and over again. However, I would like to raise 5 areas of concern that we have that haven't come out clearly within the speech of the Premier. The one is crime, the second is education, the third is health, the fourth is jobs and unemployment, and the fifth is land and minerals and housing, water and sanitation. Now, starting with crime, I haven't heard the Premier be clear about crime. She constantly referred to the annual policing plan of the police, the safety plan of the police, but there's nothing that she speaks to it. I would have loved to hear the issue about the national crime prevention, about the alcohol abuse, and how the other departments will get involved in the provincial crime prevention. Whether I was there or not, it haven't come out in the speech of the Premier, and I was here, if you haven't noticed. In terms of priority crimes, the Western Cape specifically have 4 areas of priority crimes. The one is murder, rape, shebeens, alcohol abuse and drugs, and investigation, and the lack thereof. Now, these are the areas that the Western Cape is crying about, especially murder in the Nyanga policing precinct, Philippi policing precincts, and those areas. The concern of the shebeens, the late night opening of shebeens and no proper control, although the previous MEC of community safety was walking around with the neighborhood watch, but what was he doing? Did they really address crime within these areas where they could have addressed the issue of rape? And the only way that you can address the issue of rape is to ensure that we address it in such a way that you look at the lightening in these different areas and what to do about it. Now, the specific areas of alcohol abuse and drugs, nothing have come out in the Premier's speech. She was not clear. I was here in Fontaine. Nothing has come out clear from the Premier. We need to be clear. The people of the Western Cape is listening to those areas of concern, especially hearing or someone that is being promoted here as a very good leader. I don't know what is she leading. In terms of education, she has said nothing. She haven't even speak. She haven't even speak. And she will get in trouble for tweeting and not listening because she will send the wrong tweets here, especially at night. So, in terms of the education, we raise concerns, the Western Cape, about alarm bells about matric pass over the past years and how they have improved. But what about the kids that fall amongst the cracks? Those that have started in grade 1 or sub-A, whatever you call it, and then the percentage of them have come down drastically. How do we address these types of issues if we want to address poverty in the Western Cape? We need to address these.
Jou tyd is verstreke, maar daar's tussen.
Yeah. The area of land and minerals, let me jump in the land and minerals. It is quite clear that we have a lot of challenges within the Western Cape, that we have a lot of minerals that we can exhaust to pay for these types of education.
Thank you, member. Your time has expired. I see the order. Achtbare Minister Bredel.
Honourable Deputy Speaker, Honourable Premier, Minister Gordon said, we, the ANC, owe South Africa an explanation on how Eskom failed. Now let me tell you, Eskom announced in 2007 that it was to build 2 mega coal power plants, Medupi at the cost of 70 billion and Kusile at the cost of 80 billion. To date, these 2 power stations have cost taxpayers amounts of 208 billion and 239 billion respectively. Not only are they not finished yet, the bits that are done are hardly working at all. If the 2 plants delivered on schedule, we would have had 9,600 megawatts extra electricity. In other words, no load shedding. Coal plants was, in the beginning, a bad idea to start off with. If we had a government with any vision, it would have been a green energy project. Maar achtbare speaker, ek is geskok as 'n Christen en 'n persoon wat glo in Jesus Christus in die ACDP se uitlatings vandag, om eerlik te wees met u. En die ACDP moet vir my verduidelik waar regeer hulle in die land, want hy praat soos iemand wat regering verstaan. Maar ek moet kategories dit regstel, want dit is op rekord nou deur die ACDP geplaas. Daar is geen DA-raad wat teen enige geloof sal diskrimineer nie. Achtbare speaker, die DA sit nie mense in bokse nie, nie op ras nie, nie op geslag nie en nie op geloof nie. En die achtbare Christians moet nie dit vir 'n populêre standpunt gebruik en dan uithardloop voor hy nog iewers gaan sit het om te luister nie, achtbare speaker. Achtbare speaker, as 'n Christen is ek baie trots om deel te wees van die DA se program Let's Build One Nation with One Future for All. Achtbare speaker, ek sal baie graag vir die ANC en vir die president Cyril Ramaphosa wil vra, hoe dink hulle gaan groot besighede of industrie belê in hierdie land sodat ons geleenthede kan skep vir ons jeug terwyl daar geen krag is nie. Achtbare speaker, daar is geen sin vir enige besigheidsman om dan te belê nie. Die Weskaap regering onder die leiding van Helen Zille het besef dat die ANC regering op nasionale vlak pateties bestuur het. En daarom het ons oor die afgelope 5 jaar baie hard gewerk om die provinsie energie onafhanklik te maak, so ver moontlik en binne ons beperkte magte. Achtbare Deputy Speaker, vandag kan ons die resultaat sien, want verlede jaar was plus minus 75% van alle werkslede wat geskep is in Suid-Afrika, was geskep in die Weskaap, as die ander provinsies maar na die tafel toe sou gekom het. Hierdie werk is geskep te midde van die ergste droogte in ons geskiedenis. Achtbare speaker, dit gaan als oor bestuur, oor kundigheid en oor 'n waardestelsel in Suid-Afrika. Die Weskaap is steeds in die middel van 'n droogte. Sekere dele van ons provinsie het genadiglik deur die droogte getrek, maar daar's ander dele soos die Karoo waar dit tog baie swaar gaan. Verlede jaar was die stad Kaapstad se watervlakke besig om heeltemal leeg te loop. Die stad se daaglikse gebruik voor die droogte was meer as 1 miljard liter water per dag. Daar is verskeie veldtogte geloods, onder meer die Dag Zero konsep, en persoonlik dink ek dit was 'n reuse sukses. Dit het mense laat besef, dinge is ernstig. Dit het mense laat besef dat die bron is onder druk. En mense het na die tafel gekom en ons het besparings bereik waar ons die waterverbruik met die helfte verminder het na 500 miljoen liter water per dag. Ek wil baie dankie sê aan al ons inwoners in die Wes-Kaap vir hul uitsonderlike poging om hande te vat met die regering. Dit is 'n ongelooflike prestasie wat behaal is deur goeie kundige bestuur en deur samewerking van die gemeenskap. Hierdie soort inisiatiewe was noodsaaklik omdat die ANC nasionale regering vir dekades nie belê het in nuwe watervoorsiening en infrastruktuur in die Wes-Kaap nie, wat natuurlik 'n nasionale funksie is, agbare Deputy Speaker. Projekte soos die Klein Willem Damwal was vir jare vertraag, uiteindelik heeltemal gestop deur die voormalige minister Mokejana. En as die ANC nog 'n ondersoek wil doen, kan hulle my departement van waterwese ook gaan ondersoek. Kom, ek vertel u van die Karoo dorpies wat uit water hardloop, Beaufort, Wes-Kaapland en Laingsburg munisipaliteite. Die rede hoekom hierdie dorpe sukkel is weens die oppositiepartye se onvermoë en swak beplanning. Agbare Speaker, hierdie munisipaliteite bestee al vir dekades tussen niks en absoluut minimum aan infrastruktuurprojekte in hulle gemeenskappe. Die geld gaan skynbaar grootliks aan salarisse. Gaan kyk na hoe die oppositiebeheerde rade aanstellings manipuleer om hulself te bevoordeel ten koste van die inwoners. Dit is totaal onaanvaarbaar. Vandag sit Kannaland, Beaufort Wes en Laingsburg met enorme waterprobleme met een gesamentlike faktor, ANC beheer. Nou dat daar 'n droogte is dit eenvoudig 'n nagmerrie. Plekke soos Calitzdorp byvoorbeeld het die munisipaliteit niks onderhoud gedoen aan die suiweringswerke nie. En die gevolg was dat ons moes inspring om die aanleg skoon te maak en reg te maak om te verseker dat die dorp water het. Ek moet vir Oudtshoorn munisipaliteit bedank wat oor Desember sy ingenieurs en sy kundigheid gebruik het om daardie munisipaliteite by te staan. Honourable Deputy Speaker, I am raising these examples to drive awareness about the necessity for good management and good governance in every sphere of government. We do not have a hope if we do not have good, ethical, incorruptible leaders making informed decisions for the benefits of their communities in every sphere of government. Taxpayers' money is being looted on large scale by the ANC, its cronies and deployed cadres. It is simply a fact. It is no longer an opinion. There is such a long list. I will mention one or two examples. Busasa, a company, by the way, where President Cyril Ramaphosa's son was allegedly given large contracts. But don't forget about the Gupta family, who owned, it seems like, the entire ANC NEC. Some believe the impact of the Guptas on state capture could have been as much as 100 million.
Order.
Can you imagine the impact that money would have had on our schools and our hospitals? Honourable Deputy Speaker, let me explain to the ANC what 100 billion rand can buy us. With 100 billion rand, we can build 625,000 houses. We can wipe out the backlog in housing in 2 provinces if the ANC haven't looted the state. We could have built 80 hospitals, 80 schools. Honourable Deputy Speaker, that's just the beginning. Because if you look at where I start off with, the ANC wasted plus minus 300 billion rand on the electricity generating capacity in this country. Just add up, Honourable Speaker, and you will see that the ANC don't care about the poor people. The ANC want to keep the people in poverty. How much damage has been caused, Honourable Speaker? How much opportunities have been lost? Too many to count, I would imagine. Agbare Speaker, terwyl daar groot vrae hang oor die koppe van provinsies soos die Vrystaat en Gauteng, kan ons met trots hier staan en sê ons provinsie en die dorpe onder ons toesig lewer jaarliks die beste auditresultate. Die belastingbetaler weet die DA-regering staan vir goeie bestuur en daadwerklike aksie en verantwoordelikheid. In 2017 finansiële jaar van die 257 munisipaliteite net 33 skoon audits. Van daardie 33 was 21 skoon audits in die Wes-Kaap. Agbare Speaker, 'n rekord om op trots te wees. Waar die DA regeer, is daar 'n impak. Honourable Deputy Speaker, we are also proud of our track record we have in turning around troubled municipalities. For years, Oudtshoorn was another troubled municipality until 2016 elections. The town had been so badly managed by the ANC coalition that even the Kangoo Caves, one of the few tourist attractions, had been stripped of its assets and was in danger of being closed down. In Oudtshoorn, when the province finally saw the books, about 400 people extra were found on the payroll. The negative impact it had been on service delivery and the capex investment. Within 2 years of the provincial intervention, the situation has turned around. Today, the Kangoo Caves is back to its former glory, and tourism numbers had seen record levels. There are jobs being created, and we can even rely on Oudtshoorn to assist the smaller municipalities with technical services. It was Oudtshoorn's engineers who helped Kannaland with its challenges during December. I am also proud to announce the decision to go ahead with the Blossoms Water Project, a project costing 92 million rand to ensure a secondary water source for Oudtshoorn. It will make an enormous difference to the town. The Department of Local Government, Environmental Affairs and Development Planning can stand up and look back with pride at the past 5 years' accomplishments. According to Stats South Africa, the Western Cape is the province where poor households benefit the most from policies of free basic services, electricity, sewage and sanitation. Honourable Deputy Speaker, the difference between the Western Cape and other provinces is day and night. Consider the delivery of free basic services, 76.4% in the Western Cape. The second-ranked province, the Eastern Cape, 41%. The other provinces are even worse off. I think this is part of your legacy, Premier. I repeat, an independent study has found that when it comes to delivery of free basic services to the poorest of the poor, no one does it better than the Western Cape. I thank you, Premier. Honourable Speaker, another highlight from my department is the Regional Socioeconomic Program known as RCEP. This is another innovative program whereby we are making better living spaces in all our communities and where we aim to redress apartheid spatial legacies through better integrated development. Honourable Speaker, there's so many,
Minister, your tyd is verstryk.
there's so many to mention. 1.3 million people being touched by our Tucson program. I can go on, and I want to thank the Premier because this happened under her leadership. I thank you.
Minister Debbie Schäfer, Minister of Education.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. On Friday, the Premier showed us how, when the voting public is prepared to swim upstream and vote differently to the rest of the country, they reap substantial rewards. She also showed what is possible when you have a capable state and an accountable and responsive government. Imagine if we had had that for the last 25 years, where we could be now. We do indeed have a good story to tell in the Western Cape. The ANC couldn't even organise their own protest properly. And notwithstanding the weekend Argus's report that the Whale Street was a sea of yellow, black and green, we saw the reality. A protest that was supposed to start at 9:30 commenced at about 11:30. And it was clear that the few hundred people, outnumbered by police, were not particularly interested in what Mr. Brown, Envelope Rasool, and the permanently acting chairperson...
Order. There's too much shouting across the floor here.
And the permanently acting chairperson, Kaya Magaka, had to say. We really can't blame them. Mr. Deputy Speaker, in her speech, the Premier addressed many issues in education, and I want to thank her for the full account she gave of the challenges we face. She also highlighted our numerous achievements. So today I want to focus on just a few issues of particular importance to highlight just how well we have actually done in the face of extreme difficulties inflicted largely by the ANC's corruption and mismanagement of our country. The first topic I wish to address is the matric results. The Premier spoke about our improvement from 75.7% in 2009 to 81.5% in 2018. And yes, we dropped over the last 2 years. But there are important reasons why. The Premier mentioned the first reason, which is our retention rate from grade 10 to 12, which remains by far the highest in the country. There is also the impact of increasing class sizes and decreasing budgets in real terms, which we have been warning for years now will have an impact on our results. But the other significant factor is the impact of the MEO, or multiple examination opportunity, on the pass rate. The DBE recently held a lekgotla where one of the senior officials was at pains to try and convince everyone that there's no smoke and mirrors in the release of the matric result. But even as he did so, he still failed to reveal the statistics of the number of learners per province and the percentage of the matric cohort that they comprise over the last 3 years who have written the MEO. And this is where the smoke and mirrors comes in. It does not take a mathematical genius to figure out that if you reduce the numbers writing the final exam by removing the weak ones from the system, you will get a higher pass rate.
We know you're here, Honourable Danke. Please contain yourself.
I know it's hard for the NCT here because they don't like to know the truth. So you're obviously going to get a higher pass rate if you kick out the weaker learners and stop them from writing the final examination. I'm very confident when I say that there is a strong correlation between the results in each province and the percentage increase over the last 3 years of learners writing the MEO. To put it simply, the higher the increase in matric pass rate, the higher the percentage of the cohort in that province writing the MEO. I'm really worried. I'm also confident that the Western Cape has the lowest percentage increase in those writing MEOs. And unlike in other provinces, we do not force our weak students not to write the final exam. The question needs to be asked, given that I have publicly challenged the DBE and each province to make these statistics public, which we have done, why have they still not done so? In addition, Minister Motshekga has, for the last 2 years, been reporting internally on what she has called an inclusive basket of criteria for the NSC, which takes into account important indicators such as the percentage of physical science and mathematics passes, the throughput rate, distinctions, and bachelor passes. Minister Motshekga indicated in a parliamentary reply that the new inclusive basket is a more integrated approach to reporting that reflects the key indicators of learner performance. We agree, although now I think the percentage writing the MEO should also be included. So again, I have to ask, why has this not still been made public? Is it perhaps because for the 2 previous years, the Western Cape has been number 1 and may well be again last year? So people mustn't tell me there is no smoke and mirrors. Considering the huge increase in numbers in our system over the last 5 years in particular, and the above factors, I am proud of the fact that we have been able to increase at all, and certainly that we have been able to maintain a pass rate of over 80%. And I'm proud that we have focused, and I hope the next government will continue to focus, on keeping as many children in school as possible, and ensuring as many as possible obtain their NSC, as that gives them far better opportunities in life. That is what a DA government works for. Mr. Deputy Speaker, I now turn to ICT and the Fourth Industrial Revolution, about which the President spoke at SONA. The Premier also spoke about what we have achieved in this realm, especially over the last 5 years, and it is a lot. A focus on the Fourth Industrial Revolution is very important, but the President's response is fascinating. Hand out a tablet to every child over the next 3 years. Well, that'll really solve the problem. Firstly, there needs to be internet connectivity at every school, which there is not, except for the majority of those in the Western Cape. Secondly, the criminal justice system is so dysfunctional that they will be stolen soon after they are handed out with no consequences. Thirdly, where is the money coming from? And fourthly, I sure hope, now listen to this, and fourthly, I sure hope they are solar powered, because the national government has no political will or expertise to fix the energy crisis that we are in as a result of Eskom's mismanagement and corruption. So we could quite feasibly be sitting with a whole lot of tablets and nothing to charge them with. The ANC cannot even agree within itself what they are going to do about Eskom, and they are allowing themselves to be held hostage by the unions, which means that nothing will be done anytime soon to fix it. Mr. President, we don't need tablets, we need teachers, and we need schools, and we need the ecosystem first that needs to be in place in order to effectively utilize technology in education. We also need increased technical support for schools and teacher development, to name but a few. We have done remarkably well in integrating ICT, but there is still a lot to do, and the President's apparent ignorance of what e-learning involves is quite astonishing. Although I guess he was shocked to learn what we have all known about ESCOM for a long time now. So anything is possible. The ANC has also made much of the number of unplaced learners in the Western Cape, and they're quite correct. But have they spoken to their colleagues in other provinces about their unplaced learners? In some provinces, the data is so bad, I don't think they would even be able to tell us what their numbers are. In others, they offer places to learners, and if they refuse those places, they simply remove them from the list of unplaced learners. So they can say that they are no longer unplaced.
Order.
Whether they are actually in school or not. But quite honestly, for the ANC to be posturing about unplaced learners in overcrowded classrooms is like Lincoln's definition of a hypocrite, a man who kills both parents and then complains he is an orphan. The situation we find ourselves in is a direct result of ANC corruption and mismanagement, and a direct result of the DA's good governance, to which people are flocking in their numbers. Since 2014, we have had an increase of 113,000 learners in our system. This year, we are anticipating an additional 25,000, once figures are finalized. The cost to the department, excluding infrastructure, for the 113,000 is 1.84 billion rand. Instead, what the ANC has delivered is an additional 1.9 billion rand over the next 3 years that we have to fund as a result of nationally negotiated wage increases. Plus, they have cut, listen to this, they have cut the infrastructure budget, infrastructure grant, by 132 million rand over the last 3 years. In addition, our infrastructure grant for growth was increased for growth around 298 million rand over the 2019 MTIF, but it's been cut again by another 250 million rand, leaving us a marginal increase of 48 million rand on the indicative allocation received in respect of the 2019 MTIF. That's not even enough for one school. So what exactly are we supposed to do with the 25,000 extra learners per year for the last 2 years, when the money we need is simply not forthcoming? In contrast, a MoneyWeb article last year suggested that flawed tender processes and corruption could be costing South Africa 400 billion rand a year. That money could have ensured we had no teacher shortage at all, no school shortage, and schools with far better facilities than many of our older schools enjoy. But instead, the Guptas are planning another 100 million rand wedding in Abu Dhabi, and we have to keep with our money, and we have to keep on telling our teachers to please hang in there. And then the ANC wants to take us to the Human Rights Commission. Be my guest, I will join you there and lay a countercharge. The numbers are frightening, and the only thing that will solve it is money, plain and simple. Obviously, all these extra people require accommodation. The Premier mentioned our achievements in infrastructure, 132 schools and 2,057 classrooms since 2009. That is just over one new school and 17 classrooms per month. And yet this is still not enough to keep up with the persistent demand for schooling in the Western Cape. Our schools are literally bursting at the seams. And the response from the ANC, cutting the education infrastructure grant for the 2 outer years of the MTIF. But I guess that's okay, we'll have tablets, right? The Premier also mentioned our groundbreaking bill that was passed in November last year, which will pave the way for the School Evaluation Authority. We are currently busy finalizing the regulations, and this will be a revolution in education in South Africa. Unsurprisingly, SATU has now been informing their members not to allow classroom observation, as the Premier has not yet proclaimed that the Act is in force. This will be remedied soon, and the section allowing for classroom observation will be enacted and will be enforced. We will not allow SATU or any other union to stop us observing, teaching and learning in the classroom. I can't imagine why they would want to, except if they're trying to protect people who are prejudicing the chances of our children. The intention is to improve teaching and learning in the classroom. What possible legitimate objection? What possible legitimate objection could there be to that? It is my sincere hope that the new administration will drive this forward aggressively. I also look forward to seeing the chief evaluator appointed within the next few months and the school evaluations published for communities to see how schools in their communities and our province as a whole are performing. There are many safety interventions we've also been busy with, which I shall discuss in more detail in my budget speech. Unfortunately, once again, many of them are being necessitated by the ANC's decimation of the independence and effectiveness of the criminal justice system, which is affecting our people on the ground every day, including our schools. Over the last week and a half, school grounds in Pakelsdorp have been illegally occupied. We obtained an interdict, and the police are only today having a meeting to discuss how they can deal with the problem, while people will carry on invading the property. After we have had to spend 3.5 million rand of money we desperately need for education purposes
Minister,
to try
just
and
finish
protect
off.
the school property. Finish off.
Your time has
Honourable
expired,
Deputy
but just finish
Speaker,
off.
thank you. Honourable Deputy Speaker, I think there's a good saying that says the tallest trees catch the most wind, and I think the Premier will be seen as one of the tallest trees in this province and in this country. Thank you.
Thank you, Member. The Honourable Member Dugmore.
Thank you very much, Deputy Speaker. Deputy Speaker,
order.
We are having this debate at a time when we've had democracy in our country, led by the African National Congress since 1994. And the State of the Province address happens within that context. And that context is that when we look at what has been achieved as a country since 1994, we can look at the fact that 9 out of 10 of all of our public schools are no fee, reducing the burden for poor parents who otherwise could not have afforded access to school. We should remember, Deputy Speaker, that in 1994, only 51% of learners were enrolled in public schools across the country. Now, 81% of all eligible learners are in school and are learning. In 1994, only 347,000 were enrolled in our universities. Now, over 1 million students are enrolled in our universities. In 1994, only 50% of learners passed matric, but in 2018, 78.2% of learners in our country passed matric. We also know that 3.2 million houses, when we talk about the context of the province and our country, 3.2 million free houses have been built since 94. In 94, there were only 3 million recipients, Deputy Speaker, of social grants. We now have 17.5 million people receiving social grants. In 1994, and this includes our province, Deputy Speaker, this includes our province, only 36% of people had electricity in their homes. And now 84% of South Africans have electricity in their homes. In 1994, in terms of the adult literacy rate, only 51% of adults could read and write. Now, 94.3% of adults in our country can read and write. In 94, 51% had access to clean and drinking water, including in our province that was part of that, and now 88.6% of South Africans have access to clean water. National Student Financial Aid Scheme, which also benefits all learners, irrespective of race, it goes to the issue of poverty and income. But only 70 million was spent in 1994 on bursaries. Now over 15 billion rand in 2018 is spent on bursaries. These are things, but the ANC, as our leader of the opposition indicated today, we are the first to acknowledge that not only have there been mistakes amongst all these achievements, and not only has progress been stalled in certain areas, and that commitment and that level of honesty is what is inspiring South Africans and giving them trust in the oldest liberation movement on this country, that we have the ability to reflect, to renew, and to self-correct. But no one, and that is why opinion polls indicate that over 61% of South Africans will vote for the African National Congress led by Cyril Ramaphosa, because they believe that their organization has the ability to self-correct. And that is why all of us, as the leader of the opposition, have said, welcome all these commissions, because the truth must come out. Those that are corrupt in the private sector and in the government sector must be dealt with. This liberation movement, the African National Congress, is leading and is giving an example. But unfortunately, we have a situation where in the Premier's State of the Province address, there is not one acknowledgement of any mistakes or any weaknesses. MEC Schaefer talks about education. When the ANC governed this province, we had a particular provision for a basket of posts that were redress posts, because many of our schools are not fee-paying and cannot afford governing body posts. This basket of posts helped poor schools to appoint maths teachers and science teachers. It helped with redress. But that basket of posts no longer exists under this provincial government because they have prioritized in terms of the equitable share, they have prioritized ICT, which we also support, but in the process, they've undermined the redress. And that actually comes right down to the fact that when you look at the Premier's speech, she talks about what the long-term vision actually is. And that vision is very revealing. She says that the long-term vision of this province is highly skilled, innovation-driven, resource-efficient, connected, high-opportunity society for all. Nowhere do we have any mention of redress, which is a prerogative of Constitution. And what has happened in the matric results in this province, if you look at District East, the poorest schools, that is where the matric results have dropped. That is because, in the main, that's where they've dropped. That's where the achievement of 60% has actually dropped in those schools. And that's because you haven't invested enough in the safety of those schools. The school safety budget in this province has not kept pace with inflation. So while the Premier talks about an opportunity society, it is the neglect of the poor which has characterized this DA provincial government's last 10 years. That is the reality, because redress to the DA is a swear word, as much as it is contained in our Constitution, where you have to use resources to effect redress. Not in one of the Premier's speeches since 2009 has she talked about inequality, has she talked about broad-based black economic empowerment, and that's why the economic ownership structures of our province have not changed for 10 years. We all support jobs.
Order, Mr. Dugmore. Honourable, don't you?
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. I was rising on the running commentary on that side.
Oh, okay, fine.
We can't hear the
matter has been dealt with. Minister Dugmore. Member Dugmore, you may continue.
We understand the space.
I see I was stopped at 6 minutes. But when Premier Zille reflected on the 10 years of DA government, and she gave credit to those who decided to take the road less travelled in 2009
order.
And vote against the national trend, it's clear that many of those voters are now regretting that decision, especially those voters from working-class communities of Cape Town. You can see when the Good Party has a meeting in Mitchell's Plain, it is packed out. The DA battled to fill that hall, and all that was in their hall in Mitchell's Plain was their public representatives. That indicates that those people who feel that Patricia de Lille was mistreated are disillusioned with the DA. This term of office, Deputy Speaker, presided over by the DA, can be described as 10 years of broken promises, of missed opportunities, and of the cynical neglect of the majority of the poor, African and coloured and white in this province, a neglect of the poor. Critical to the quality of life in any community is where the people feel safe and, in fact, are safe. When the DA, under the leadership of Premier Zille, took over this government in 2009, there had been a steady decline in the rate of murder. This was progress made by the ANC. Under the DA, contact crime has increased by 17% by 2013. There have been a record number of child murders under this DA government. The crime stats for 2017 and 2018 saw a number of police stations in the Western Cape having the highest number of recorded murders compared to police stations in other parts of the country. So as this 10 years come to an end, the real legacy, the real Western Cape that the DA leaves us with is the shocking legacy of a province which is more violent, which has greater levels of substance abuse, and a culture of gangsterism that is more embedded.
Order, Member Dugmore, just 1 second. Honourable Minister, is that a question? Honourable Dugmore, are you prepared to take a question?
The MEC Windy needs to be patient, because I'm going to expose him and his department for the abuse of 7 million rand of taxpayers' money.
Minister, I assume that is no.
The reality is that while the DA talks of a whole society of approach and a delivery unit, their approach has been focused essentially, as per that vision, of preserving the privileges of the haves and neglecting the needs of the have-nots. Premier Zille never talks about inequality. The DA never talks about redress. The resolution of crime and gangsterism needs a dedicated focus on the causes of crime in the most affected community. It is not surprising that the situation has worsened. It is both the absence of political will and the failure to develop an integrated and targeted approach backed up by resource allocation. But what makes it worse, Deputy Speaker, is that the Premier comes to this House and actually misleads us and the public. she claims that the ratio of Western Cape police officers in our province to residents is 1 to 509. If she had bothered to simply look at the South African Police annual report for 2018-2019, it's very clear there that that national ratio is 1.375. In our province, if you look at the fact that we have 20,457 police personnel, according to Stats South Africa, the mid-year population last year was 6,621,000. That works out in the Western Cape to one police person for 324, which is much better than the national average. Yet she comes here and she claims that particular...
Order. Member Dugmore, just 1 second. Honourable Wenger.
Will the honourable member take a question?
Honourable Dugmore, you prepared to take a question?
But moving on.
The answer is
no. And let's
no.
hope Member Wenger gives the correct information, because I'm sure she's misleading the Premier, who in turn is misleading us. Now, in her speech, Premier Zille argued that the conditions for sustained progress towards prosperity...
Member Dugmore, just 1 second. Honourable Wenger.
Deputy Speaker, the honourable member has just accused me of misleading the Premier and the House, which I think is objectionable, and I'd like you to rule on that, please.
Yes, referring to a member as having misled the House or misleading the House is in order as long as you don't add deliberate or intent into it. So it's okay, you can continue.
Yes.
Order, order, order.
Deputy Speaker, yes, I did not say she was...
Order. Honourable
I
Lekker.
did say she was misleading the Premier, and the Premier therefore is misleading us. That's what I said. In her speech, Premier Zille argued that conditions for progress require rule of law, culture of accountability, and a capable state. Now, Member Nkondlo has already referred to the fact that the Premier and the DA government ignored the highest law in this province, the Provincial Constitution, by simply failing to implement 2 commissions which were required by the law. This is double standards. But the issue of accountability, which I want to get to now, I want to ask how committed Deputy Speaker is Premier Zille to accountability, and in particular to the accountability of her MECs for the use of public resources and the respect for procurement processes. Is the Premier prepared to cooperate with an investigation into the allegation that one of her MECs approved a closed tender amounting to 6.84 million rand to a single service provider for work done for simply 2 months, from the 6th of October 2014 until the 1st of December 2014. Almost 7 million rand for less than 2 months' work for only one service provider, giving no one else an opportunity. I'm referring, Deputy Speaker, to bid number... I'm referring, Deputy Speaker, to bid number EDT 006/14, awarded to McKinsey, yes, McKinsey, by the Department of Economic Development and Tourism. This is at the time when MEC Wendy occupied this portfolio. It is clear that this work could have been done by officials of the department, and they in fact indicated that. Secondly, will the Premier establish from MEC Wendy how many times he had met representatives of McKinsey in both an official and an unofficial capacity before the work was allocated exclusively to McKinsey without allowing any other service providers the opportunity to tender? What we need to ask was the view of the Bid Adjudication Committee when this matter was discussed with them initially? I believe that this matter, and I'm happy that the chair of SCOPA is here, because this matter needs to be investigated by SCOPA. We need to call in the officials of this department, we need to call in McKinsey, we need to call in MEC Wendy to explain why, when officials could have done this and they were told that the officials could do it, they gave it to one. So we want to know, what is the relationship between MEC Wendy and McKinsey? We want him to tell us and explain that particular relationship, because that is what we need.
Order.
It's very clear. It's very, very clear.
Order, order, Honourable Fritz.
That there's one set of accountability for some, and there's another set of accountability for others. And I trust that this House will get to the bottom of this matter, because clearly you cannot pay one service provider almost 7 million rand for 2 months' work, and you don't give an opportunity to anyone else to tender. That is what needs to be explained. When we look at the Premier's speech, we also find a complete absence of any reference to the indigenous people of our province. We know that since Premier Zille was appointed, this DA provincial government has never met the Griqua Royal House, the Congress of Traditional Leaders, the Kai Kuranas. In fact, in 2011, Premier Zille declined an invitation to attend the Adam Koch commemoration at the castle. This legislature, Member Janki and others from that side went around to the whole province, where the majority that went to the public hearings expressed support for the national traditional leaders and Khoi Sandville. They expressed support. But it is the Democratic Alliance who has opposed that legislation, which means that this province does not want to set up a House of Traditional Leaders for the Western Cape, nor do they want to set up a House of Traditional Leaders in local municipalities. So that is very, very clear that this government undermined the rights of the indigenous people. Order. This particular provincial government gave no recognition. And that's why you can see in Black River Park, the DA continues.
Order. I will attend to it, Mr. Hayes. I think you're raising on the same point of order. There's too much noise coming from the back corner there and constant interjections. Don't make it a running commentary, please. The noise level is too high. Honourable Dugmore, you may continue.
So what is fact is that the DA voted against the rights of indigenous people in this province, of the Khoi, the San, the Controlesa leaders. They voted against it.
Order.
And they have no interest to establish a House of Traditional Leaders in this province. The DA voted against it in the NCOP. It's a matter of record. And this province in the public hearings expressed support for that. So we then have a situation where, under the leadership of the Premier, in terms the spirit of colonialism and subjection goes on because you fail to recognize the indigenous people of this province. That is a legacy which has been left by this particular province. We then have a situation which I would like to refer to where Premier Zille has raised the issue of housing delivery. I want to remind this particular House that we put forward a motion when we asked, as a matter of public importance, when MEC Madikizela was informed and in a Premier statement that he had already in 2014 completed a housing strategy for this province, complete with which properties were going to be released, etc. That has never ever been given to this House. So the Premier in 2014 already misled this House that there was a comprehensive strategy for housing delivery. The Provincial Property Committee, has never reported to this House since 2009, which shows that they never intended to release provincial properties for housing in this province, preferring to blame national government for not releasing aid supply. That is the problem. There's been no political will.
Order. Remember, your time has expired. Please come to order. Please come to order before I see the next speaker. The next order. Next speaker is the Honourable Nkasela.
Honourable Deputy Speaker, ndifuna uqala ndithi kuNontsapho i-Democratic Alliance ime emva kwakho iyakuxhasa nentetho oyenzileyo yephondo. Sibabonile ke oxam amaqungequ amaqotha aqikili oswana sibomvana orhoxetyeni amahlungulu bekhwela bezehlela bengakwazi ukuthetha bedlala upuca ngexesha fanele baxoxa lento sithetha ngayo apha. Yingxaki ke xa udilishana nabantu abangenanto kwenza ngoba bananto thetha kuba bengenanto kwenza. Voters in this province, because they know that they are the bosses, they will hire us here this side on the May 8th elections. But they will fire those ones on the other side because they are useless on the May election. Now, let me come to the issue of the Khoisan people. The Nama, the Griqua, the Korana, the Cape Khoi rejected the ANC bill, the Traditional and Khoisan Leadership Bill. They told us, we went around this province on 5 districts We went to each and every corner of this province. They said, this bill is not fair, this bill is not just, and this bill is discriminatory. This bill is not fair. They rejected it. But because the Democratic Alliance believes in the question of justice, but we also believe in the question of fairness, we said we will not support a bill that sees colored people, Khoisan people, as certain class citizens in this country. Because you think it only matters close to the elections to come and put wool in the face and the eyes of Khoisan people. They reject you. They rejected this bill. On record, they rejected it. And Honorable Dagmo, you were not there. You don't even belong in this committee. You were not anywhere close when we talked to the people. They rejected it. Honorable Premier, when you spoke here, you said to the people of this province, young people, I will give you a data of 3 gigabytes for free. That is what young people are getting from this government. And you said if you have to top up, when the 3 gigabyte expires, you will only pay 15 rands. That is what has been promised to young people. And you are saying here, she said nothing. Maybe you're not here because you had to speak to the marchers outside, because you are not taking your job seriously here in this parliament. On corruption, the premier candidate here of the Democratic Alliance says to the voters of this province, when you vote, I commit, that's what Alan Winder says, Honorable Winder says, I commit to putting all my ministers on a lifestyle audit. We have been calling on the lifestyle audit in the National Assembly for years. What the ANC does, zero. Zero. Because you promote corruption. You promote corruption. You are an African national corruption. That is what you are.
Order.
Because we have seen how you have stolen money in the national government with 80 billion rands in irregular and wasteful expenditure. 80 billion rands in the national departments. 28.4 billion rands in the 257 municipalities in this country. And 99.9% of those are ANC governed. In ANC governed provinces. In this province, that represents 0.1%, and all of those have something to do with ANC governance because of these small coalitions that don't make sense here. So let me tell you something. The problems, Honorable Deputy Speaker, are in the supply chain management. What does that mean? Let me educate them. It's how you manage your wallet, the public purse. The problem with the ANC, they confuse public purse with private wallet. That is the problem. In Otoren, when we had an ANC government there, the mayor used, and his friends, some cookie jar, where they would say to a girlfriend, you want to buy fish and chips, go and take there. You want to buy cool drink, go and take there. Thinking that they are private wallets when it is government money. That is the difference between us and the ANC.
Order.
But also equally, we are saying here to South Africans, when you go and vote for the Democratic Alliance, we promise South Africans that those who steal money from the people will not get less than 15 years behind bars, minimum. Minimum. We want to see where are those who are stealing money today instead of sending them to jail. You promote them to ministers, you send them to national government, and that's why they steal more there with this Bosasa nonsense and others. Now, let me get closer to finishing. Let me tell you this. No, it's fine. I understand your temperature, but let me tell you this. I increase temperature. It's good.
Order. Honorable Lekker.
When I listened to Honorable Dagmo speaking, and I thought that this is a person who doesn't believe in that government must do work with the private sector. That's what government must do. You must allow private sector to do the things that government can't do, but do so within the rules. They think because they've been stealing, we also steal. You see, when you are a thief, when you see somebody stealing, you think that when you see somebody else doing something right, you think they are stealing because you know you are a thief. Maybe he could have told us about his wife doing business with the criminal justice system and tell us what is his wife doing, how is he doing it, because maybe he thinks the same thing that himself and his wife are doing. The TA government is doing it to other people.
Order, member.
We are governing clean governance.
Order. Just finish off your speech.
Governance for all people of this province, not for some people.
Order,
because that
member.
is one South Africa
Order.
for all people.
Time has expired. Come to order first, please. I see the Honourable Wiley, Chief Whip.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. Speaker, I've had the privilege of being a public representative in this country since the mid-1980s. First as a ratepayers association, then transitional councils, and from 1994 until now, albeit with broken service at provincial and national level. I've met some extraordinary people, but most of them are my own countrymen, men and women, who astounded me the most for their generosity of spirit and their willingness to see South Africa succeed irrespective of their ideological differences. For the sake of this debate and my argument, I will mention some of these people. I've spoken 3 presidential debates, and on each occasion Mr. Mandela referred to my contribution directly in his reply because I took the line of being constructive and positive. I had appealed for reconciliation about building bridges and about historical importance. I have served with and interacted with Mr. Sisulu Sr., Mr. Kotrada, Mr. Terra Lakota, Mr. Mbeki Sr., to name a few of the ANC stalwarts. Carter Oswald acted as the umpire of the parliamentary cricket side, of which I was the convener. Trevor Manuel was a regular player, as was Johnny DeLunga. Bantu Holomisa was the right wing, and I was the left wing of the parliamentary rugby side. My abiding memory of these individuals was their dignity, their graciousness in victory. They had a keen understanding of what was required to build a nation, and although their past suffering was undoubtedly still fresh in their minds, they felt that the little would be achieved by harping on it. They also understood that they had inherited a functioning state. They simply wanted to put their long overdue imprint on a country and spread the opportunity that especially whites had enjoyed to a much larger audience. But they also listened. And I would like to think that some of the contributions by both myself and my colleagues are still apparent today. Personally, I was deeply affected by the humanity and the Ubuntu. And so it is that we come to today's debate and last Friday's speech. In any reasonable circles, the content of the Premier's speech, based on empirical data derived from a variety of independent and accredited institutions that we all quote from, would be celebrated. Celebrated as an astounding achievement, more so in South Africa of late, but by every measurement and commentary, this country is in dire straits under ANC rule, economically, intellectually, and morally. I've never expected much from this opposition, either on Friday or today. They lived up to their unenviable task of hateful race baiting, truth twisting, and a complete lack of accountability as the governing party for any of the myriad of disasters facing our once prosperous and beautiful country. I can't think of a single redeeming feature of the current ANC and its leaders, especially in this province. I would be at a loss for words. Can you think of anyone? Just one. Honourable Dugmore, by his own admission, says they've made mistakes, but after exposure, public exposure. All I see is a dissolute, desperate and destructive bunch of ne'er-do-wells who are more concerned on acquiring goods for themselves than on delivering the goods for others. They are mean, insecure and crude. Many are too young to even have experienced apartheid. Their abominable behaviour and the storming out of the chamber on Friday was a low point, even for them. If, as alleged, the words "fucking old white man, you stole our land" and "footsack" were in fact uttered, then this country and all its citizens needs to be afraid. Because this is the ilk of the leader of the ANC is satisfied with. Unrehabilitable, venal racists and incompetents who see no harm in accosting the elderly, the infirm, the isolated farmers, the youth, the skilled and the essential role players, and children. One can only shudder what venom is spread over the dinner table because what we see happening in classrooms should send a shiver down the spine of any reasonable person. Last week I listened to President Ramaphosa reply to the SONA debate. He called for all South Africans to pull together. I agree, but not with a quaint and dangerous narrative that one has to vote for ANC to achieve this. It has to be done.
Just 1 second. Honourable Nkondlu, you're giving a running commentary now. Please contain yourself.
It has to be done in spite of the ANC millstone. But he has his work cut out because the worst divisions are within his own party. Surely, as president of the ANC, he cannot agree with what happened on Friday in this House. Surely he cannot agree with the weaselly, cowardly arguments put by Ibrahim Rasool, trying to justify the unjustifiable. But then the question does need to be asked. How bankrupt is the ANC to allow Rasool, a discredited and dismissed premier, to be allowed to have anything to do where the public trust is involved? Did they think his extended stay in Washington would bring about amnesia? Goebbels, the Nazi propagandist, said that you should accuse your enemy of what you are guilty of. And now listening to Honourable Dugmore, he could be a clone. One such lie being peddled by the ANC is that the DA is politicising SAPS, as referred to by Minister Windy. Quite how this is achieved by a party that has only oversight in another sphere of government is a mystery. The truth lies in the reverse. Currently, an overtly ANC faction of the senior echelons of the Western Cape SAPS is doing its best to subvert the authority of the Provincial Commissioner. The indiscriminate promotion of 600 ANC cadres within police ranks, and the gross abuse of the Minister's Special Advisor, Leonard Max. I quote from a current circular distributed by Faiz Jacobs, the Secretary of the ANC, to all CPFs in so-called coloured areas. Hello, comrades, it says. Please note the following notice from the Provincial Secretary's office. Comrade Becky's visit, and then it lists 9 different venues and 9 different dates. And it ends off, signed by Lieutenant General retired Leonard Max. And it's distributed by the ANC. Special advisor to the minister following his cell number. My deep concern is that all the SAP station commissioners...
Order.
Deputy Speaker, my deep concern is that all station commissioners in the areas concerned were instructed repeatedly to ensure that there were full crowds when Leonard Max came to see them. Because the minister doesn't come, only Leonard Max. Is it to sell the Bambanani project, which he discredited himself? But the president has also called for decisive action. He showed decisive action when last year he instructed the SANDF, for which he's the commander-in-chief, to change the Armed Forces Week from Limpopo to the Western Cape. I doubt there's a single citizen in the city who's not aware of their presence at the moment. The rolling thunder of artillery and fast jets has rattled windows and terrified persons and animals. But, sir, why stop there? Over 200 citizens have died in Mitchell's Plain in the last recent months, and SAPs are suffering dire shortages in manpower. But, Speaker, I wish to address another matter.
Chair,
the Honourable Christians...
Order, you've got your time is almost done. Please conclude.
The Honourable Christians sermonised to us, and notwithstanding his repeated flagrant untruth, he stated the DA has no political will to fight crime. I would like to alert the Honourable Christians that he is the chairperson, meant to be the neutral chairperson of SCOPA, with the full advantage of all the facts. I end by saying, I paraphrase the Honourable Member, we give notice.
Thank you. Order. Order. That, Honourable Janki, Honourable Dugmore, order. The chair wants to speak now. That concludes the business of the House. The House is adjourned.